Welcome back to Why Blank Lost for Survivor 45. I'm David Bloomberg, and I have to admit I was surprised by the ending of episode 10. Uh, yeah. Joining me as always is, of course, my co-host, Jessica Lewis.
Hi, everyone. I'm here. And was I surprised? I don't know if surprise is the correct word, but we've had so many things to unpack. I'm very excited.
Yes.
And we have some help to unpack it today.
We do. People watching the video version could already see we have a great special guest, one of Vanity Fair's top 25 best performances of 2023, Carson Garrett.
Wow, I love the Vanity Fair edition. It makes me feel so special.
Girl, I love that.
It was so fun. And then I don't know, just being friends with Bruce, like my prediction was he was going to get to the merge and then like not go like too much further. So just knowing Bruce, like, and being friends with him. But in terms of the episode, was I surprised at certain events that happened that led to the result that we saw? Absolutely. So yeah, I'm very excited to talk about it. And I just want to say, I feel a little weird. I've already talked to them about this, but I used to listen to Why Blank Lost while I played Minecraft, and I would be playing these video games with my sister, but I was always in this one spot, and it was like ritual. Every week I'd go to the same game, I'd play it, and so I almost feel like I'm now in like a multiverse of worlds of Minecraft, and now I'm actually talking to y'all, and so this is very cool and a little bit surreal. Carolyn and I would literally talk about out on the island how much we love to watch and listen to y'all, in addition to Voce and Tiffany. And so this is really crazy, honestly, for me that I'm actually here.
This is so good. It's like the Matrix is real.
Yes, it's all coming together. And
you have entered.
Honestly, we could not have timed this any better. Or maybe worse for you, depending on how you look at it. Because, we've been trying to get schedules worked out all season, finally got this date picked out, and boom, your former tribe mate ends up the topic of the podcast.
I know.
Isn't it so
listen,
crazy?
We need to go back for just 2 seconds, okay? We are going to talk about Bruce, and I do think that it worked out really nicely, unfortunately, but nicely at the same time for Carson. But Bloomberg, we were in Fiji with Carson. Isn't that something? I think that's pretty incredible.
Yes.
I like
for a minute, I was like, wait, I've never been to Fiji.
Okay, so what they're talking about, I was telling them this before, but when I found out that I was going to be going, I downloaded all my favorite songs onto an MP3 player without Wi-Fi. And so I think about a week before I was about to leave, I had been listening to Why Blank Lost ritually every week throughout 42, throughout 41. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, I wasn't listening to the podcast back when there was like seasons 37, 33, all those. I'm not actually 33, but like, you know what I mean? The seasons before the 41 and 42. And so my thought was, well, why don't I go and listen to like I've been listening to them so much. I love their commentary, the way they look at the game. Why don't I take the winning episodes of Why Blank won from the seasons that they had recorded and download them on my MP3 player as a last hurrah before I go and start the game. And so I would listen to them. I remember specifically before when we were taking pictures, that can take like 3 hours. So I was just sitting there outside, and I had my headphones in listening to Why Blank One. And it was a great way to like kind of start the game and also a positive mindset going in, because I guess when you're only talking about why someone lost, it's like it's easy to forget why that one person wins. So anyways, I was trying to bring some good
I love that. I think that's so incredible, because it clearly yes, you made it all the way to the end as you did, and well, but you made it there, and we, there were reasons that removed you from the game that Bloomberg and I have complained about ad nauseum since it started.
Right, me too.
Yeah, but I do think that it's really incredible that you utilized something like this to try to help your game. And I don't say that because it's Bloomberg and I doing this podcast.
I do.
I'm someone who I didn't know about this whole world that existed before I played the game. And I wish that I had listened to all of these podcasts. Like I knew there was things, but I didn't realize it was this in depth. So I love that now there's a true recognition of that. And players are saying, yeah, I went out on the island with David Bloomberg's rules. I listened to all the podcasts I did. So it's really great to know that maybe this really does have an effect on people. I like that a lot, David.
It does. Absolutely. I mean, I don't have my journal with me because I keep it in a fire safe box because I'm that like crazy. I'm like, it's going to burn and I'm never going to have it. So it's somewhere at my parents' house, but I had in my journal the 7 rules. I read them at one point. It's very long, by the way. So, but worth the read.
Thank you. Every time he makes additions or changes, I'm like, what's the word count now?
And this is after I shortened it. You know, it had originally expanded, you know, when it was on my website at the time, Reality News Online. And then when I brought it over to podcast about it, I shortened it. I cut out some parts. And then, you know, some has added since then. But this is still the shorter version.
The shorter version is right.
Okay, so tell me some like recent additions if you can remember any. I'm fascinated because I'm sure as it changes with, you know, new advantages, new twists, you have to kind of amend some things. But what's like the most recent thing you remember changing?
Mostly it would have been in our preseason. Well, we only did one preseason podcast this time. It would have been in our preseason podcast, and I'm trying to think of what it was. I think it was about you guys. It might have been you in particular.
That'd be cool. I inspired a little.
You're in the rules potentially.
Yes.
I can't remember either, as I said here.
I'm looking now to see if I can find my notes here. So let's see here. That's right. I moved it to the end. So this is great podcasting. Looking at
it's live, y'all. Like we didn't plan. Like here we go.
Yeah, and I opened up the wrong notes on top of it, so that makes it even better.
Well, you can keep looking. You can definitely keep searching while we continue with the podcast. Well, I will just say, as Bloomberg is searching through, looking for the Carson addition to the rules that he has created, because you probably are there. I think it's really great too that this was a bonding moment for you and Carolyn out on the island. I think that's really lovely as well. So that makes me smile as well.
I mean, I would join y'all's Instagram lives and I was just something about the 4 of y'all together is just so fun. And and it was something that I loved because Tiffany and Voce have this like, I love how there was like, it was like, there was like house divided, like Voce and Bloomberg versus Tiffany and Jessica.
Yes.
And there's something fun about like 2 sets of friends who also like can combine and have 2 sets of. I mean, it was really fun. We have
a good time with them for sure.
Y'all's dynamic is amazing.
Yeah, well, thanks. We have a good time with them. They're quite fun.
Yes, they are. And we'll have to. It reminds me, I need to reach out to them for this year.
You will.
So. Would be really crazy. I just thought of it because Carolyn's close friends with Voce. And then, anyways, like if we had 6, that'd be crazy. But I could see it. Like that was our dream. Carolyn and I are joining the 4 of y'all.
We could do like a Brady Bunch kind of squares.
Yes,
all of us together.
Yes. I mean, I've been on podcast panels with that many people. We'll have to.
We can do it.
We'll have to see if we can do that here, and then we'll go from there. I am not finding my notes in question because what happened was that we didn't know if we would have time, and so I did not have them in the same set of notes. But I did find the new version of the rules, and they are highlighted. And in rule one, I added to the discussion of the Brian Heideck type strategy, which was then implemented by the combination of Dominic and Wendell. Now there's a paragraph that says Carson on Survivor 44 also had similar ideas with a spider web of relationships and information sharing that relied upon the other people not comparing notes. He told Mike Bloom in a post-game interview, my big thing was separating information. If Ratu and Soka never conjoined and talked about different stuff that I had told them, that was good. As long as I kept them not wanting to talk to each other, it would work that way. And that happened with Helen and Sarah versus Carolyn and Jam Jam. It was that way throughout my entire game, putting myself in the position of the middle where people think they're closer to me than I am with anyone else.
Look at that. Oh, wow. You made the rules.
I forgot that happened. Yes.
It's a good thing it's been documented forever now.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, I was thinking about it earlier. I was like, I started this 2.5 years ago when I applied, and it's just crazy that much time has passed. But also, I don't know. I mean, it still feels very fresh too, because people will come up to me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we loved watching you. When did you film?" And I'm like, when did I film? 2022. And they're like, that long ago? And I'm like, yes, that's what's so weird about it, is that it takes so long to air. And then it's like, you're trying to like remember things that happened so much longer ago, but that's really cool that that's in there. But yeah, no, it was always, as long as they don't, come together and share notes, like, we're good.
Right.
A great strategy.
It is. But it can also, it's dangerous, but
my gosh, yes,
absolutely dangerous. But if it works, it works great.
It works.
If it doesn't work,
absolutely.
If it doesn't work,
you're in trouble.
I think the key is to find people who they both trust you more than they trust the other person. So as long as they don't want to ever entrust that with that other person, they want to share anything, like it's okay. So like people who naturally don't get along, so you could go, example for this season, Bruce and Katora, you could tell them separate things about each other, and they would never share that with each other. And that that's something that you can work with. So I do think like you have to find people who just are complete opposites, separate. So we have a lot to talk about with Bruce, don't we?
We have so much to talk about with Bruce. We do.
And now I do want to say, Jessica and I are of course used to talking about people we like and people maybe we don't like as much, but being objective no matter what. I know Jessica likes everybody, So.
I'm like, what are you doing? What kind of lead-in is this?
Well, hold on. And but Carson, you're going to be in a tough position. Because you know better than we do. You already said he's your friend. I think Bruce is a good guy. Everything I've heard is that Bruce is a good guy. But we're going to have some things to say about Bruce.
Of course.
That
rightfully so
will not be as good. So now, even with you here, it won't change how we look at what happened. We will still follow our usual path, comparing Bruce's game to my rules for winning that we just discussed, that I originally wrote way back after season 1 and have been updating as recently as for you, using all the non-spoiler information available to us from what we saw on TV, interviews, social media, and secret scenes. The newest version of the rules can be found at our dedicated page, robheadswebsite.com/yxlostfeed, scrolling down, clicking on the bubble for the rules. So we'll have that. We already, Jessica, you just said we'll have a lot to talk about. Normally, we have other things as well. And in fact, usually we would start with the Bruce Katura War. But this week, that will obviously fall into the rules themselves.
Right.
And then I was thinking about other things to discuss here, like the Reba 4 and this and that and Emily. But those all end up falling into the rules too, because it all just kind of comes together in this episode. I mean, we could discuss boys' night, but that's not really something.
That's what I was just thinking, honestly. Really, we get the Top Gun moment. Honestly, I have to say this, and I know, Carson, you're a youngin', right? And you're young.
Yes, yeah.
But when that scene started playing, I almost fell off my couch when I heard that music. I'm like, are you serious right now? And then it kept going. It wasn't even like, we're going to do a little bit of this. we are going to do this for a very long, extended, almost uncomfortable amount of time. I was sitting on my couch going, I can't believe this is happening. And my husband actually goes, he's like, what was there? Is there like another bad advantage or something? And I'm like, no, it's Top Gun. Like, what is going on?
Is there another bad advantage?
Yes.
I like Aaron, that's the immediate.
Yes. That was the immediate, like, oh, well, what is there another? But no. This was just a very, like, I was like, I can't believe that that's what just happened. Yeah. So hilarious, uncomfortable, weird, the whole thing.
Why was it uncomfortable?
Because
I was uncomfortable too, but I can't put my finger on it.
I mean, when you have a bunch of guys together burping and farting, it is kind of uncomfortable.
I feel like it was like not just that though. It was like something about
the posing, everything about it was just. And in my head, I'm picturing the weird like Top Gun moments where all of the men are running around like with their shirts off and being all super guys. But it's like
I bet
it was
you were
all
picturing that.
Listen, I might have been picturing a few of them. I'm not gonna lie, but at the same time, there's something very like weird about that whole Top Gun scene too. And so then it's like you put the two together. It was very strange, to say the least. Very strange. So yes, I think it went on a little too long.
I agree, but it certainly was a fun addition to what is. I don't know, like. I don't know about y'all, but like recently, I think like Jeff and I love Jeff. Don't get me wrong. In his podcast, he's like, we're gonna see some incredible strategy, and I'm like, this was with the Kelly vote, and it was like the final they finally didn't just pile all their votes on one person like they did with Caleb,
right?
And it was like this is new strategy, and I'm like. No, this is just we're finally playing smart because we should never always just pile on one person. Like, I don't know. So that's something that I've been struggling with because it's something that's been very much so present where we just see everyone's like, okay, who's the next big person we're going to target? Is it Bruce? Is it is it Jake? Is it going to be Kelly? Like we just saw Caleb. I mean, the fact that Caleb got 12 votes against him is wildly crazy.
That's insane. Yes. Yeah.
And I put the onus on the majority group, these core, the people who are leading it to not split it. I just can't even imagine how, and everyone's like, why didn't Emily vote for somebody else? Because she's close with Caleb. Well, Emily also was not in a position of power that episode. Like that onus is on the people in power. So yeah, sorry. Little tangent.
Yes.
No, but I listen, this happens on this show all the time. I do appreciate components of the editing being different and highlighting things that we haven't seen before. But there are moments when Jeff says things that we're all kind of like going, wait, no, Bloomberg will agree that we have those moments. And I love Jeff too, but there are times that we're just like, no, Jeff, that's not what happened or should happen. Yes. But he's, it's Survivor and we are loving Survivor as we always do. And every once in a while, the editors do something that's a little different.
So fun.
that makes us all pause and go, well, this is why we like the show, because there's a lot of reasons, but then there's like this little extra that gets tossed in there sometimes. And you're like, okay, well, that was new.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Even like, I don't know if y'all noticed, but before the reward challenge, there was Jeff was explaining what the rewards were, the food. And then all of a sudden you're looking at like Austin and Jake and some other people and their mouths are dropped, like waiting for something else. And then you don't hear anything else. Right. And it was just random. It was just weird. It was like, what?
Like awkward pause. Yes.
Did they were they 5 seconds behind on their mark at the very end of editing? They just needed to add like a couple seconds. it was fascinating to me. I was like, what? I
think the editing crew is purposefully doing things like this now that they are kind of pushing the envelope, doing things a little bit different that we aren't expecting. Like we saw the dream sequence that we discussed, Jake's, and that I thought was fantastic. I loved it because you're like, wait, they're actually showing us tribal council right now. Like we're seeing tribal council, but it's through the eyes of Jake. And it was great. And so I do appreciate it. But this one, this one was strange.
Yes, Now, speaking of the reward challenge, I do have to say, I think they intended this episode to air last week.
Yeah.
Because they had the Thanksgiving feast and the letters from home and the turkey and mashed potatoes. And they even, there were a couple different references to Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And I think maybe CBS had said, okay, here's when we're going to start you. And then when the actual schedule came out, they're like, yeah, we're actually pushing you back a week. And oh, well, nothing.
Sorry.
Oh, well, we're going to have a Thanksgiving meal.
So Thanksgiving week was a little tiny rotisserie chicken.
Yeah.
Right.
The week after is the much larger turkey with mashed potatoes and all the fixins, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll be honest though, I thought the turkey from last week was a little underwhelming. I would not have been happy to see that.
Yeah.
It was underwhelming. Thank you.
Although so Jessica posted that on Twitter and Bruce said no, it was huge.
Okay, right? But I don't want a turkey.
Well,
sorry.
No, it was a chicken.
I want a chicken, whatever.
I want whatever. A whole spread. Yeah.
But
this was a little tiny rotisserie chicken. You get it
I'd rather have PBJs.
Like $6.99.
Yeah.
You would
have
you would
peanut butter and jelly?
Throw them up again?
I don't know. I would not. But at the time. Going back in time.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it would, or at least give them some sweet tea or something. That's a Southern boy in me coming out. I love me some sweet tea. But they actually did give us, they called it sweet tea. It wasn't sweet tea, but it was like an Arnold Palmer, and it was delicious during the peanut butter jelly sandwich reward, which was not a reward, disadvantage rather. But anyways, I don't know. The rewards have been interesting, off a week. I mean, it's just been fun. But I know Jeff said this to us out there. He said, well, we coordinate the rewards and the food to gradually increase in the taste and the deliciousness to appeal to the way to making you more excited each and every time. He definitely talked about that a lot, and you can see it. So there's always this it starts low, you get the fish at one of the pre-merge rewards, and then you get cake one time, then you get the full everything. So because me and Jam's final reward food meal was delicious, literally the best meal I've ever had. 5 course, everything. It was amazing.
Love that.
And you kept it down.
Yes, that time.
That time.
So here is my reward meal. See, I'm always getting made fun of for the snacks that I eat here.
Wait, is that an actual cookie?
Yeah.
Why does he have a hole in his head?
Yeah,
because it's at the German market where it was bought, he was held up.
But that's what I was like. I couldn't tell if it was an ornament pretending to be a cookie or a cookie pretending to be an ornament.
Would have been funny if he was like, it's an ornament, then takes a bite out of it.
Yeah.
I might have been convinced.
And then go, oh hell,
There's a little hook in there. Yeah, I would have been convinced.
See, does this meet with your approval, Jessica?
No.
What?
That kind of cookie?
It's a gingerbread man.
I know.
I love gingerbread.
And you love all things weird when it comes to candy and food.
Gingerbread is not weird.
Okay, it's not a chocolate chip cookie, which is much more common.
True. I mean, yeah.
It's a gingerbread man. I mean, they're cute, but I would never be like, I want to eat a gingerbread cookie. That's just me. And anyone who wants gingerbread cookies,
because I stock up on gingerbread during the season. So
so you have it in January and February too, or
yes, yeah, I stock up on them, and
so it's
stocked up on candy corns.
I am not a candy corn person.
Oh, thank you, Carson.
Are you not either? I cannot.
No, they're the worst. Why would anyone want to eat that? Or circus peanuts? Who would want to eat that garbage?
Oh yeah, no.
Bloomberg. It's the worst.
I tell you. I think she just recruits people onto her side here at this point.
Well, I've got
okay,
Carson
but I'm
now,
a weird snacker. Don't get me wrong. Like I was known as the person in my dorm that everyone would stop by and grab a snack from the drawer because I had like 3 drawers full of snacks. And like, I mean, I could literally go the whole semester with just my snack drawer and be completely fine. I don't eat meals.
What kind of weird snacks?
Okay, I have a really here. I'll get it out.
And I promise you all, we are going to talk about Bruce, but we have to figure out the weird snack first.
I have a really weird obsession with Cheez-Its. It's an issue. I eat so many packs of them. Okay, but it is
by the amount that you eat
quantity.
Is weird?
Yes. The quantity is a little off.
Okay. I can appreciate that.
And I have to have it with cranberry juice. And it's like a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
That's weird.
It's a ritual. Yes, I love it.
Okay. All right. Well, I will say I prefer the white cheddar Cheez-Its to regular. I don't like the other Cheez-Its. I want the white cheddar Cheez-Its.
I got those
too. Those ones I can get down with. The other ones, not so much.
Yeah, okay, I understand.
And not with cranberry juice though. But anyway.
Oh,
I digress. I'm someone who loves champagne and salt and vinegar chips. So that's one of my favorite combinations.
Oh, now I could do that. That does sound good. Yeah.
It's fantastic. I like salt and
vinegar chips. Mm-hmm.
It's a great combination.
All right.
So anyway, all right, let's talk about Bruce now.
Normally we would have our Jeff Probst is wrong about blank segment here. But we've already had a David is wrong about the snacks he eats segment. So
okay, I like gingerbread too.
I love that segment.
So we could skip the Jeff one, and he didn't really say anything that upset me too much this week. So before we do get to see how Bruce did, we do need to mention that the rules we're about to discuss come in poster form.
Yes, they do.
Now that is much shorter than the version that Carson was talking about, and much more colorful. So you can go to robhitswebsite.com/YXLostFeed, scroll down to the poster and click on it. And if you do it now, hopefully our shipping department will get it out to you by the holidays.
I know. I promise. I think I owe someone a poster right now.
So
I have to double check.
Yes. And then you can keep scrolling down and you can find the poster on a t-shirt, or you can find the checklist on a t-shirt. Now we don't control the shipping on those. So check, hurry up, go on there, click on it and find out, what the shipping date is. And hopefully you can get it in time for the holidays. Go from there.
You definitely should order it. It's great.
Yes.
All of it.
Yes. All of it. Wear it all. I don't have one of those shirts on. I have specifically for Carson.
Mm-hmm.
I have a RHAP NASA themed RHAP shirt. It's very cool. And I was gonna bring it to Fiji with me, but then I was like, since I'm not telling people that I am studying aerospace engineering, maybe it's not a good idea.
Yeah,
just in case. I took every precaution.
Well, and it gives away two things. It gives away that you listen to RHAP and are enough of a fan that you have a shirt, and it gives away the NASA part. So
all bad pregame, all bad.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, so one person, our alternate wore a Blue Angel shirt, and it had like planes on it, and I was like, oh my goodness, is this a pilot? And turns out our alternate's an aerospace engineer. They were just ready to replace me. They were ready. But I knew based off the shirt that was someone in some realm of affiliation with something space aviation. But yeah, he was an aerospace engineer, and they have not had someone in that profession.
Are we going to see him sometime soon?
18, 19? I would love to. I'm rooting for him.
Yes.
Did you just find out he's the alternate when the game started, because then you realized he didn't go out with all of you? Oh God, that's gotta be awful to be that person.
Isn't it? It's horrible. The good thing is that they're aware, and they do get compensated from what I understand for being there, which I didn't know. But yeah, I can't imagine like going there and then just having to go home, or you're Austin on this season and you get to replace someone. Then it's like the best feeling in the world. But also maybe for me, it would have been, shoot, I should have prepared. I wasn't prepared enough. Like I was just kind of, because I wasn't expecting it. Like I was full out everything. My books were painted, everything. Like I went insane. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, before this week, Bruce had been theoretically vulnerable for only one tribal council. And that was the split one where Bello had the numbers and Kelly, who was an alternate the first time she went out there, held them together. But when the opportunity came around again, everyone jumped on it, even though it wasn't perhaps beneficial to some of their games. Bruce raised an interesting question in his interview with Dalton Ross. He said, you feel good that people looked at you as much as a threat to want to vote you out, and they're happy that you're gone. But then it's also like, okay, so what part of that is we just want Bruce the hell out of here, as opposed to it being gameplay? So which was it? That is a good question, Bruce. Did they just want him gone, or were they worried about him staying? And how did they accomplish it without him playing his idol? It's time to figure out why Bruce lost. Now, the first and most important rule is to scheme.
Sorry, I felt like there would be like a, it was so good. Okay.
Trumpet.
I love it.
Now, I think Bruce understood the first rule, though from a different viewpoint than most players these days. Several others called his views old school, and it wasn't meant as a compliment, like the shirts, the old school Survivor that Jessica sometimes wears.
I should have worn that. I appreciate old school Survivor.
Yeah, but not this old school problem. Well, you could tell me in a minute. Rather, it's the type that advocates having your allies and your enemies and basically going to battle rather than a more fluid type of game that has dominated the new era.
Yes.
We saw that as early as the journey in episode 2 when Bruce didn't give up any information to Brandon and Drew, and Drew thought it was very bad gameplay because it made it seem like he didn't want to work with them. Of course, Drew had been playing the exact opposite with radical honesty, but ironically has now settled into the exact type of game Bruce would like, with a tribal alliance that is pagonging everyone else. Now, Carson, I know you didn't exactly have like more than 5 minutes to work with Bruce in your season, but did you get any immediate impressions of how he was going to play in this regard?
I mean, impressions start from Ponderosa, but I don't remember. I did. Okay, I do remember. I do remember notes on Bruce, but it was mainly stuff around the lines of looks like a military dad, and like bald head. I'm kidding. But that, how like you have to write down stuff about the person to remember.
Yes,
physical
because
you don't know their names.
Yeah,
I don't remember their initials. I remember what they look like. I don't really particularly remember my first impression starting of him until we were all doing is it a reward challenge for the Flint? Is that what we call it? Or like the marooning challenge? That's it. Marooning challenge.
I mean, I'd say it's a reward challenge essentially, but
it's
the marooning
in that category. Okay. Yeah. So I remember him being very much so, all right, team, let's do it. In very much so a dad sort of way, but it never really rubbed me the wrong way. When we got to camp, watching Bruce on Survivor 45 is like watching, it's kind of like the contrast of, I don't know if y'all saw Caleb's little Ponderosa video on Survivor's Instagram, where he's like, hey everybody, it's Caleb, the Canadian. And you're like, dang, that's a lot of energy. It's like that contrast where it's like, I got to see the Bruce equal of Caleb on the island completely depleted. And then Caleb getting voted out is what I'm watching right now of Bruce. Bruce is like so energetic. He's been such a character. But I remember him being more at the camp, just kind of dull, but he would definitely speak his mind and talk. But I don't know, for me, it never really rubbed me the wrong way. It was just like, that's who he is. But Carolyn did this face on the show.
Yes.
For people who are listening, I'm putting my hands on my face and I'm like stretching my eyes. And
great lawyer move right there to keep the record clear.
Yes.
Yes. Just wanted people to know. And she got annoyed by him, but she always said like, oh, me and Bruce would have worked together. And I look at her and I'm like, okay, yeah. That would have lasted.
She could, to skip ahead, she could put her emotions aside for that. Maybe we'll see. We'll see. But so you didn't have time. Well, yeah.
I didn't have much time with Bruce.
Yeah.
But,
So okay. Yeah. So we saw more of the old school type of thing from Bruce as the game progressed to mergatory, and others described his view of the game as archaic in terms of not wanting anyone to talk to your enemies. The most prevalent was, of course, Caleb, who you just mentioned, who told Mike Bloom at the time, I was planning on working with him. Bruce's problem was that he really wanted us to come into the merge and not talk to anybody besides each other. He wanted us to be a strong group that doesn't communicate with the other side. And to me, that's just not how you play the game. And neither did anyone else in Bellow see it the same way. We wanted to kind of build relationships on the other side to just know what's going on. But it's also valuable that they can bring you information that can allow you to make the right strategic moves by seeing more of the picture. And then he got mad at me for trying to build relationships with the other side, which I didn't know we weren't allowed to do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean,
that's frustrating.
Right. Yeah, Caleb's right. If Bruce and the other allies had a better view of what the other players were doing, maybe they would have realized how tight the Reba 4 really are. Maybe not, but maybe they would have. And it's interesting because the Rebas are playing like Caleb described. They are tight together, but then each of them has these things to get information from the other people.
Yeah, I do really feel for Bruce because I see him as being someone who has a sense of himself. And we always talk about how when you come into Survivor, you need to know who you are because you need to understand your strengths and your weaknesses and what you can bring to the game. But there are certain components that you need to shift and adjust for what happens when you arrive. One of the things that he talked so much about in his exit interviews was the age gap that he was feeling with a lot of the people on his tribe and the people that he was having to play the game with. And if there is a significant age gap and you feel like there's some disconnect, well, that's where the adjustments need to be made. And so that's what makes Survivor so interesting is that you can have an idea and you can have a plan and you can come in and say, this is how I want to be. Like he wanted to be the fun uncle this time when he came in. And that's great if it works. And if you're starting to see that it's not working, there are those adjustments and shifts that need to be made in order to perhaps play the game that you want to play, but play the game with those that you're playing the game with, because that's the only way that it's going to work. And I just feel like he was too locked into the idea of what he wanted, as opposed to saying, okay, this is not going to work for me strategically. But I also feel like he was missing the cues and maybe they just weren't as clear as we thought they were. And that's part of it as well, that there was a miscommunication amongst all of them that's not working for us. And maybe they wanted to keep him in the dark and let him keep doing these things and acting these ways that frustrated them. But in the end, it was unfortunate for Bruce that he didn't see it. And then watching it back, he's now seeing how people were interpreting what he was doing. And that's got to be a hard thing to kind of process.
Yeah, absolutely. I also know on the like age gap thing, I mean, like, I feel like that's all in your head. You make the age gap if there's an age, like if there's a disconnect in something. Like, I don't know, like that's I mean, me and Carolyn, I never thought of like, oh, or me and Jam. We never had an issue where because they were 15 years older than me, that I felt like in any way there was a disconnect in the way we connected. Being a different age has nothing to do with how you converse with your friendship or anything like that. It doesn't change. But if you make it something in your head that's different and you apply it that way and you think of you enter in a conversation, you're like, well, I'm just a lot older than somebody or I'm a lot younger than somebody, then it will affect you. It will affect how you see it. So maybe that was something Bruce struggled with, was feeling a little, I mean, but Julie's out there, but we don't really see them interact as much. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we'll get, I think we'll have more of the discussion of the age gap maybe in Rule 5, I suspect. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it depends. I mean, yes, age gaps can be important. When you're younger. Like a 16-year-old dating a 26-year-old is a little weird. But a 60-year-old dating a 50-year-old probably not as weird.
Right.
And so it just it's obviously that's different from the game, but like I said, we'll get to that.
Yeah, and I think that Carson's point is very valid in that a lot of what you interpret can actually affect the gameplay without you. So you have to be very cognizant of those things, and you have to realize like, oh, okay, if I'm feeling a certain way because I think that there's an issue with the age gap, and if that becomes what you're focusing on as opposed to just trying to create a relationship with that person, it can become a distraction and it can get in the way. And maybe he was overcompensating, thinking, oh, well, I need to try to fit in because I'm so much older and I want to feel like I'm friends with them and then I'm the cool uncle, as he said. And that became the focal point instead of just the relationships that you can develop with people because you can find connections in other ways.
Yeah. Getting back to his views on, specifically the strategy, eventually he did realize things weren't going the way he thought. And he even said a couple weeks ago that tribe lines are gone. Problem is, as I mentioned last week, they were gone for the bellow, but not for the Reba. And so it was like, you're a little late on that one, Bruce. And if you had let the tribe lines be gone a little sooner, maybe it would have been different. But it's just that the Reba are doing a very good job of hiding it, which will be a constant thread, I think, through here.
One thing, though, to know about how Bello has kind of dispersed and Reba's stuck together. This episode, we do see Bruce trying to take out a Reba. I mean, he did end up voting for Julie. So I do think Bruce was I think there was two issues. One, that like there was not much unison between the four people, Emily, Bruce, Katora, and Jake, on trying to work together. But also it was interesting because Bruce was trying to take out Reba and mentioned how it was important that they take out Reba because, hey, there's 4 Reba and there's 4 of us that aren't, don't have any tribal lines. We can't let them just steamroll through the game. But his issue was that I feel like there were people like Katora and Jake who he first fake lied to Katora, then told Katora the truth about his idol. Then he didn't even tell Jake, so they were not going to trust him. And also, all of them were so concerned because, well, Bruce is only going to use that for himself. He's not going to use that in necessarily a way to benefit the 4 of us. This is solely for him. So their group just couldn't get together too.
That actually
that they dealt with.
Yeah, that leads nicely to the second rule, which says not to scheme and plot too much and to keep your scheming secret. Now, we were talking about how he didn't scheme and plot enough, but then you brought up these other things because, he did certain things that did not make him the ideal ally. And you already hit on some of them. Katura specifically said words to that effect. And so like after some of the things, so they didn't exactly go over why Katura said that. So we will, because like after the Caleb vote, Bruce purposely asked Katura in front of other people why she was hesitant to vote Caleb, so that he would make her a target. Prior to that, he had gone out of his way to hide from her that he got in the idol. She was literally the only one on the swap tribe to not know that. And of course, she was going to find out and not be very happy about it. And then this week, you mentioned that she was, the whole lie thing and all of that. And like, why are you trusting her with this information?
That was odd. That was very odd. I mean, that you're going to test it out on her.
Right.
In this weird hope that, no, maybe I thought that she and I could work together. That's not how you develop that rapport. And also this far into the game, trying to develop it in that way, that's a bit of a miss.
And then on top of it, it was this. Sorry, he did the same thing with Jake.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he lied to Jake so Jake would spread the misinformation.
You're pushing away people that you need to be bringing in. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, yeah, you know, he just, he along with the other bells just kept wanting to take shots internally. And, you know, Kelly was like the only thing holding them together. And even then it was just barely. And, you know, so like Caleb told Dalton Ross, I told Bruce the whole time that he was maybe the person I talked to the most. So it was crazy to me that he decided to take a shot at one of his own. And the question always in reality TV is, do you shoot at somebody who might be with you or somebody who's definitely against you? And he decided to take out the person who's maybe with you. And I think he heard his own game and other people's.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Just there was just such a disconnect of so many things he was doing. And I think that when he was trying to utilize strategy, it was as you were mentioning, Carson, it was like too much, like too quick. And you were kind of like, whoa, like the guy who didn't want to formulate any strategy 3 days ago is now like, let me test this out and let me, you know, do these things over here. But it was like a lot. And you're like, where is this coming from when that's not something that we were ever seeing him do previously? And so the balance that Bruce was trying to find, I think he was really struggling with because he just didn't know what to focus on and how to balance what he wanted versus what other people wanted and find that middle ground, which is a very difficult place to find in Survivor, for sure. It's a very difficult thing to find.
Yeah. Now, I was going to say another problem with this rule came in the form of warning against obvious duos, particularly when it came to him and Kelly. You know, she tried to keep it hidden, but she told Rob that Bruce was telling people how he and Kelly were such good friends, including telling Julie on Reba. And you know, contrast this with how well the Reba have been doing for so long in hiding their own duos, like Drew and Austin or Julie and Dee. Julie's out there telling people, oh, I'm on the bottom. It's terrible. I'm on the bottom. And people don't even recognize that Drew and Austin are together.
Right.
Okay. But note on that, I feel like Emily is aware of this. But it's almost what's so interesting to me has been the continuous, well, I don't want to, you know, upset. I don't want to ruin my spot of where I am. I'm, you know, I don't want to blow up my spot. I'm in a really good spot. I mean, Emily was between Drew and Austin and Brando and Kendra. And so she knew that those two were close. And this whole time she's kind of been helping or allowing them to conceal their tightness, their alliance almost. So I just am really interested. Are we just not being shown something about Emily's relationship within the Reba 4? Has she integrated that we are not aware of yet?
Yes, I think she has that alliance with Austin and Drew.
And
so the relationship she was not aware of was how close those two were to the Reba women.
And she probably has a final 3 deal with those two. And then expects them to put out.
Exactly. And now things are like she has started to, or perhaps has fully realized that her place is not looking secure. But
see, that's something important. If you only have one way to the end, or you're only banking on one way to the end, that's where you can get messed up. That's where that's where you get voted out usually, because the people that get to the end are usually people who have multiple different paths. They have relationships with other people. Now, I hope it works out for Emily. I'm just saying in general, like Drew, Austin, in particular, and Dee maybe too, and maybe Julie, but the Reba 4 in general, they have all kind of interspersed themselves. And this is at least what we're seeing within the group dynamics. And it does give you more. I mean, Marianne, this was Marianne's way to win, was that she had many different paths to the end, and she got there. So yeah, I definitely think that's something future players should think about. If you only have one way to end, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Well, and Bruce actually talked about that in some of his exit press, that he knew, looking at, like, where do I go from here? Like, even if I survive this vote and I'm going back to camp, who's going to be working with me? Where are my numbers coming from? And so I think that's a really incredible thing to make note of when you are trying to get that path to the end. And the problem, I think, with Bruce, and something that he talked about, was that he wasn't thinking long term. He was thinking in the moment, right now, what I need to do, as opposed to how do I get to the end of this game. And he realized too late that he didn't have a path anymore because it was gone. And I really do think that that's something you need to be mindful of, and you have to have those options in order to figure out how to get there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Before we leave this rule, I do want to repeat something I said a week or two ago, because some other players kept calling Bruce paranoid. But again, you're not paranoid if everyone actually is out to get you.
You're right.
So, in that regard, he was right on top of things there.
Yeah. He was reading that.
Yeah.
He's reading
now, normally we would go ahead to Rule 3 to talk about the flexibility you're mentioning, but we seem to be having a call in here. I'm not quite sure what's going on here. So
we have a call in. This is new for our show.
Yeah, this is.
I think we've done this one other time, maybe.
Yeah, hold on. What's this?
Okay,
oh my gosh,
what's happening?
Because the lighting is. Oh my gosh, I didn't know.
Carolyn, where are you?
Well, I think that's Carolyn.
See who it is.
She might be in a movie theater.
I am so sorry that it came up as Coco. I thought that did not.
Coco. She thought that she just put a random name.
Coco has joined us, everyone, and we can't see Coco.
Hi, Coco.
She's in the Witness Protectors program.
This is really bad. I didn't think, and I'm like really nervous right now. This is like the official. I didn't want my first time to be like this with this bad lighting.
Can we see you? Can you turn a light on?
Can you turn your car lights on?
Where are you?
Now, okay, you have to like switch it around, Carolyn. Now your phone has to go the other way, like in front of the lights, so the light's shining on you, not behind you.
She's in her car.
I know. I'm waiting. Just this is good enough. Okay. Let's just ignore. Is this not? Oh, it's not everything has to be perfect. No, I'm waiting for my son. He's playing hockey.
Oh, okay.
I want to talk about things. Let's not waste time on lighting. We don't need good lighting. That's not what makes a show. And I'm sick and tired of it.
You, that's all.
Wait, Carolyn, can you talk about what we would talk about at night at Tika? What do you remember? What we would discuss? Our favorite podcast? Yes, you do.
I thought you were talking about food. I thouut you were trying to trick me into talking about.
She
food.
always thinks I'm talking about. No. Yes, I'm kidding.
No, I've been dying to say this too. Like when I would be, yeah. The rules really took over my life out there, and that's the truth. And I really think that some should be retired. And who got me into these was Voce. And you gotta know the rules. And he sent me everything. And I'm not gonna lie, and I know that I should be saying, follow the rules. They messed me up because I was too obsessed with them, where I couldn't get it out of my head, and it messed with me.
We know we saw you giving confessionals like about them.
I know,
but in your voice, Bloomberg.
Yes,
but it was. She'd be like, I know I'm supposed to play the game.
It's true. And it didn't help me. And I just want to say that. No, I don't want to say it didn't help. Here's what I want to say, and I'm not just like.
It helped me.
Up.
So.
Here's what I want to say is, was I emotional? Yes, but I think I did a very good job of coming down and then collecting myself. But I always needed that moment to just feel it. And then I always said, I'm like, okay, I know I need these two. I just needed my moment. But when you have all these rules, it really messes you up, because it was like, oh, I gotta be doing everything right. And it's hard. And you guys were just talking about path to the end. Oh my God.
What was your path to the end?
Girl, are you kidding me? Like, I was thinking like Bruce, like I really, truly, there were so many days where I was just paranoid, didn't know what day was going to, you know what I mean? It's so hard. Like, oh, then you have to have multiple paths to the end. I was.
We're not saying you have to, but if you limit your options, it's going to make it more difficult for you to get there.
But obviously it worked. What you were doing worked,
look at you.
Your path worked. So
yes.
Right.
Now, Carolyn, you mentioned emotions, and I told Carson about his addition to the rules earlier. We're not in Rule 4 right now, but you are in Rule 4 right now. You are added to Rule 4 because I wanted to clarify, because you were going back and forth on this. And so I added in, it's okay to have emotions and to show emotions, as we saw with Carolyn in Survivor 44.
Where did I not see that? Sorry, I've been way out of the loop on everything.
No, I just added, this is the new rules, the new version. And it says the key is not being controlled by them to the point that it affects your game. She did quite well in this regard, as people often dismissed her as emotional while she plotted against them.
I absolutely was emotional too, but I also knew how to keep it together, and no, I didn't know how to keep it together, but it's perfect with when they voted for Franny. I was pissed. I'm like, meh! But I woke up the next day and I said, I know I need them, and let's move on.
That's exactly it. See, that's the thing, because you've said, I'm an emotional person. It's fine as long as you do what you just said. So see, even when you didn't think you were following the rules, you were following.
Oh, I were. Upon reflection, and I'd like to say there's plenty of emotional people in this season, but they just don't. You wouldn't think that they're can I call some out? Katura, absolutely emotional. You know what I'm saying? Which I love her, and I loved last episode, and I'm not saying, because she was
voting Bruce was not necessarily in her best interest. Bruce wanted to work with her.
But she even said she was putting in the emotion side, but all of the anti-Bruce stuff, which I get, it's that's emotions. It's true. But we don't make fun of those types of players. Good.
Well, some people do. Some people really do, and for the wrong reasons. But I will, and Carolyn, I don't think you'll be around long enough to get to Appendix A, but we'll discuss more and Appendix A for you, Carson. I did want to skip to the Rule 5. Okay, so pretend to be nice, play the social game. And,
I know he's going out of order, Carson. What is happening?
I'm doing this for Carolyn because Carolyn's here. And
I apologize for this background.
I already had something in my notes here, and Carolyn, I need an answer from you. Okay. Because when you popped into the post-show podcast that Carson was doing with Rob after episode 4, much like you're popping in here, you said that you told Bruce ahead of time not to boss everyone around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay? And Rob responded, shouldn't he be himself? And you said, not like that. Okay.
Wait,
then
what did I say?
You said not like that.
Not like that.
But then when you were on with Rob like a week
surprising herself with something that she said.
I'm a hypocrite.
Yeah. Well, then you said it a week or two ago, and you defended Bruce by saying if you're a dad, you're a dad. If you're a coach, you're a coach. You can't ask someone to turn that off.
Yeah.
But you know that I will ask those people to turn that off so that they can do better for themselves. And
you can't though.
But you need to. And lots of people do, because people who are seen as bossy are often voted out first.
Yeah, but I'll give you an example. Emily, can we get the original one back? Because I loved it at the beginning. I loved seeing that. And now she's changing to appease everyone else and be able to stay.
Play a better game
to watch. Good.
I don't think
it's boring to watch, but is it better for her game?
Yes.
Who cares?
We care.
I'm sure she cares if she walks away with $1 million.
And I
she can invest it.
I thought that for the new era, accepted crazy. I thought the new era was accepting the weirdos. That's what I thought.
We accept you, but remember that
we're about $1 million.
Yeah, we're about the rules are about winning, or at least doing as well as you can, and so Emily saw how to adjust. Emily would have been the first one out if
that's what they said about me, David.
Well, but nobody quit on your season. Hannah literally quit, or else Emily would have been gone.
Emily would have been gone.
Well, you could say that about Bruce. Bruce had his injury, otherwise I would have been gone. Or
well, I mean, that's possible. Although I think Carson would have kept you around. But Bruce would have been the first one out if his tribe at any point pre-merge had gone to tribal council. He would have been the first one out.
Yeah.
Do you think so, Carson?
No. On this season,
do you agree? Do you agree with that, Carson?
On this season, I mean, everything can take a change, but like that definitely seemed the trend that it was going towards.
Yeah, every player who has been voted out and done interviews has said that.
Yeah. Yeah, so, look, Carolyn's like, Carson, do you agree? No, they've said that.
Yeah.
I just believe, like, I don't like the whole like hide parts of yourself. Why can't we play this game and be ourselves? That doesn't go with the rules.
I mean, not if yourself is pissing everybody off. And I mean, I don't mean to sound that way to Bruce, because we discussed this before you came on, that Bruce is a nice guy, but the way he was behaving is he's just, I mean, he even said to Mike Bloom afterwards, I was playing this game as a game. I never put my personal human feelings and never really took into account anyone's personal human feelings. And so,
he said that?
Yes, he said that in his exit interview. And yes,
I just want to read her the interview so she like react.
And I want to note on this. This is why Carolyn and Bruce would not have worked together.
No, because I was getting more from Bruce than I was from anyone else. So,
well, he was delirious. That's why.
Well, exactly.
Oh, Bloomberg, that was mean.
This game sucks. I'm never like, oh my gosh, it's true. It's traumatizing. It really is.
It was more traumatizing to Bruce the first time.
Here's what I want to say is I don't believe him. I don't believe him for 1 second. No, I don't. I'm sorry. Carson, what? I believe that
you think he's trying to appeal to the masses, or what?
I think that he's trying to protect his heart because I think what he watched was it's hurtful. So I think that he is trying to protect himself by saying that he didn't put his emotions out there or put his feelings out there. That's bullshit. Nobody can tell me that no matter what or who you are. It is absolutely impossible not to. It is. I don't care what anybody says, and I'm not calling him a liar but it hurts, but it's okay to say it hurts. I cried my eyes out so much out there. I felt disrespected at times. I bawled like a baby. Anybody who says like, who has been able to play this game as like, I don't know who, like they're lying, or maybe they're.
Well, I mean, I think Bruce would say, because we saw, that he on the episode we saw that, he had that moment after Kelly left, and the Reba people were like, "Oh, Kelly was really mad at you." So he definitely went through that too. But it's getting back to the way he was treating people. He, I think, felt he was treating Kelly in a positive way. And then, but it's not the way it came out. And he, like at the very beginning of the game, he was telling us he was holding back so much. So he was trying to do your advice, but then Katurah was sitting there going, oh my gosh, he's giving advice all the time. And there were these similar disagreements even now about how he handled discussion like the camp chores. Caleb talked about getting bossed around by him. He came out and did his press and said, well, it was more of a discussion. Like I just said, these chores need to get done. Let's do them. And it goes back to this whole generational thing that we were just talking about before you came on, where he again brought up, well, in my generation, we didn't talk about things. We just did them. And, he said the same thing on the show. And I objected the week that he said it because I'm older than he is. And I just don't feel that's the case. You can't just say, well, the older generation feels like, I think he's generalizing his own specific experience. Like,
yeah.
And I don't know if this is true, but it seems logical. He was in the Army, I believe. I
Oh
know he
yeah,
was in the Armed
you're totally
Navy.
right.
Yes.
And so if someone told him to do chores, he did chores because you don't argue, in that. And that's an armed forces thing, not a generational thing. And he may have just internalized it from that or another part of his life, but not everyone has the same experience. So
we need to be more respectful, is what you're saying, and be more understanding and adjust to people.
I mean, the best way is to always adjust to people.
That's not what he's saying.
But that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is I don't like it. And sorry, Bruce, if you're listening to this, but I don't like it when people blame things on the generation. Oh, this generation, they just don't want to work, or this generation, they do this. Or,
do you remember the season I was on? Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. This generation, they get their milk delivered by drone.
By drone.
Bruce would have been perfect on millennials versus.
He would have been. I was just gonna say.
He would have been perfect, ideal casting choice right there.
Yes. But I mean, so anytime I hear someone blaming everything on the generation, I just have this kind of immediate reaction. And it's weird because people look at me and go, wait a minute, but you're not in that generation. Why are you so defensive? Well, because I know a lot who are. I know my own kids. I know people like you, Carson. I know, you can't look at a few people and go, oh, this generation, they just don't want to work, or whatever. Because no, you can't cover a whole generation that way. And I would say the same thing to Bruce.
So yeah,
Carolyn's thinking right now, she's like, Carson was very lazy. No,
that was just you, but I get it. You wanted to be like RHAP. I get it. Like,
we talked about this. We were arguing because she was like, you never wanted to have fun. You always wanted to just sit around, be bored. And I was like, no, I wanted to be in the conversations. I wanted to make sure I heard everything around the camp. So I sat at the camp.
Sometimes the conversations are.
So while you have your aerial moment, I was covering your back, listening to everybody else talk smack about you.
That gets exhausting. If I could just say that, playing the game, it gets exhausting. And, I need a break sometimes. And
imagine playing it for 39 days.
No,
right?
Yeah.
Ow. You don't get break days, though. It's not like it's whatever. I'm not going to defend it. Carson, tell him. No, we all are we not legitimate?
Oh, you're legitimate.
You are legitimate.
You are absolutely.
But I can't play the game 24/7, and that's just not going to happen. I can't, and you're supposed to, but no, I'll go crazy.
I mean, it's no one ever said following the rules was easy.
That's true. Oh, that should be the next T-shirt you make.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Yeah. No one ever said following the rules was easy.
It's not.
I like it.
Oh.
Now, I do want to say, since we're here in this rule already, that I just kind of, blasted Bruce a little bit here. But I mentioned last week that as much as we joked about Bruce this season, it was rough to see him going through that moment of self-doubt and everything else, where he was kind of breaking down emotionally. And,
yes.
And I'm sure by now he knows, and judging by his interviews, he understands it's the difference between real life and game, daughter versus fellow player. But it just doesn't translate to the game. And I think a lot of it does go back to that dad instinct, even beyond what we talked about in relation to Kelly. Like you said, Carolyn, he couldn't help himself.
No.
And it wasn't just Couture talking. It was almost everyone from his original and swap tribe, even going back to Brandon, who told Brando, who told Mike Bloom he can't fight those dad instincts that he was trying to hold off. I mean, we had to do things around camp. He was telling us, hey, go do this, go do that. Why isn't so-and-so doing X, Y, or Z? So again, it wasn't just Caleb. It wasn't just Couture. It was everybody.
But is that a bad thing?
Yes, if they all want to vote him out.
And I think what happened really with Bruce too is that when you don't really know how to fit in. You want to do what's comfortable for yourself and what you know best. And that's what Bruce knows best. And that's how Bruce is. But he's not reading the room, and he's not adjusting for the room that he's in. And that's where it becomes really hard. You know, that's what makes Survivor difficult, is you are thrust into a space with people who have all different types of personalities, different backgrounds. They come from different worlds. And you need to then come together and be cohesive. And that requires restraint. And it requires you to shift and change parts of yourself, even if you don't want to, and it might be uncomfortable. But I know, but you have to do it. You have to, because if you want, I know, but it's an unfortunate part of the game where you are wanting to rip your hair out because this is awful in this moment, but I want to win $1 million. So I'm going to put that on the shelf, and I'm going to Caroline is dying in her,
I just don't think we should have to. I don't think.
Well, you should, but you do if you want to win. These are the types of things you have to do. I mean, and that's what makes Survivor hard. And I think that's what people who played the game can appreciate more, is that when you're sitting on your couch, you're like, well, I don't understand why that's so difficult. This is why it's difficult, because how many times have we been in a space of people, like, just think about it, when you like first day of anything, you know, first day of school or going to a new job, and you're meeting new people, and you're like, I hate every second of this because who am I and who are these people? And you're trying to adjust. And so many people are judging you in that moment, and based upon everything. And that's what Survivor Ponderosa days are, right? You're being judged on what you're wearing, what you look like, how you go and get food out of the, you know, when it's time to eat. All of these things become a component of how they're judging you. And so you have to acclimate and you have to change. And I think Bruce fell into what was comfortable for him, not realizing that was uncomfortable for other people.
Which makes good TV. So
that's true. It was great TV.
It was excellent casting.
It was great TV, except that literally almost, like, I would say 90% of Katurah is Bruce. And I feel bad. And Bruce even said that in his interviews. Yeah. He's like, I feel bad that Katurah is being molded this way and shown this way, because there was so much more to her out there. So
she should start a t-shirt line as well. There's more to me than just Bruce hate something.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But I will say, I think that Carson, you always say, Carson, that you like, oh, you know, you struggle to fit in sometimes too. And like, I want to just say he was the most social, like everybody loved him. He was so, you could go into every conversation and you might, I'm like the nerdy, whatever. Yeah, right, Carson. You were like, everybody loved you. And that's the truth.
And still do.
I got to go. My son's coming. Okay.
Bye. It was lovely meeting you.
We'll see you again.
I can't have this be my thing, because seriously, like, I'm in a box. This is not my premiere. I love this show, and
she'll be back.
All right, we'll have you back.
This again.
Okay, sorry. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
I feel like I need to respond to her thing.
But she left. She was like,
I know she left. I can't like.
She's like, here are all these compliments. Bye.
Bye.
You're great. Like, you're amazing. Everybody love you. Bye.
Yeah. I mean, it could be worse. She could have said bad things about you.
No, I know. I still wanted to reply. I mean, like, because I feel like, I don't know. Now I'm trying to think. I'm like, wait, what? I mean, the psychologist described me as an outgoing introvert. And I get put off. I would always, yes, I know, me too. That's what I thought too, because I've always been an introvert. Like, I literally, last night I was hanging out with friends and I'd left and I was like, like, I had a great time with them, but at the same time I'm like done and I needed to recharge. I was exhausted. But like, I guess I'm really good at faking it. Like, I'm like fine.
Pretending to be nice.
You were pretending to be nice.
Yes, absolutely. So I don't know, but I don't know. I just feel, I mean, like, there are people in my real life that I don't get along with. So I don't know what she's talking about. So I don't know.
But that's,
maybe
again,
out there. I think it goes, lucky.
I think it goes back to, again, the game aspect of it. And I don't mean to talk about this more while she's gone. But it's the game aspect of it. Yes, there are people in all of our lives who you don't get along with. And sometimes you have to pretend to be nice. I've talked before about I definitely applied these rules when I was at work. All the way from top to bottom, scheme and plot to, other than, worrying about idols. But I could have used an immunity idol a couple of times. But yeah, pretending to be nice,
Well, you're right.
I mean,
actually,
did I tell my boss and coworkers and employees what I thought of them every single time? No, I could not do that.
No. And this is why, like, it becomes necessary for you to read the room that you're in. And we all do it every single day in our jobs and in our family lives. And this is what you do. And even just hanging out with friends, you adjust and you shift, because we can't be 100% authentic all the time, because some people might not want to know that you are just in a crabby mood that day and you don't want to deal with people, and then leave, And so we do this all the time, but you don't usually do it on national television where everyone's watching you, judging everything that you do in the process. And so it is a very difficult balance to find when you're out there of how do you fit in and how do you try to be authentic and appear to be authentic, but also playing this game that is $4 million.
Right.
Yeah. I will say, and adding on, like there's out there, I can remember so many conversations where I was so not interested and so out of the conversation, but I was being a good listener, and I would ask them, and I'd have follow-up questions and be like, oh my gosh, Brandon, yes, wait, tell me more about how good that food is. I don't even eat steak. Wait, you do what to it? What seasoning? I need to write this down. You're right. It's like fake it till you break it, I guess.
You just have to.
You do.
Absolutely. And I think that if you can sell it, I mean, then that's obviously going to work for you out there. If people think, oh, wow. And Carson, you probably presented yourself very well when you were out there, which is why you could connect with people and have relationships. And Carolyn is talking about how that's exactly what was happening. Everybody liked you. You could talk to anyone, but you were adjusting based upon the audience.
Right.
I think we're just very different. Like the other person would know if she didn't like them. They would know within seconds.
Yeah.
Right.
Which was it was like powerful, because then they dismissed her, and then she was able to use that against them. But I mean, I would discredit her a lot. But yeah, sorry. We can get back to the Bruce.
To Bruce? to the other member of your tribe who ended up
the other member of Tika.
Yes.
I'm actually sad because I wanted there to be a statistic where Bruce gets the end and never gets voted out. And then now Tika's the tribe. Not only were we the tribe on our season, and out of all seasons that had the least amount of people actually voted out, with only 2 out of the 6 of us, or 66.67. But we also returning wise had the same thing. So I can't blame Bruce, but I was hoping internally I could add that little
that would have been an interesting statistic. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because there is one, Michelle, I think she's the only survivor she's never been voted out either.
Yeah.
Because she won, and then she made it to the final 3 on.
Well, the only returning survivor.
Well, but
because every winner has never been, or every finalist has.
Well, yes. So yes, exactly. Like she's played the most without ever being voted out. So I guess that needs to be added in there too.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we already skipped ahead for Rule 5. So let's skip back to Rule 3, which tells players they need to be flexible. Now, I know we had already sort of moved into this a little bit, and I had also mentioned his lack of fluidity earlier, but Carson, I don't know, expand on how you think he did for Rule 3 in particular.
It's hard to say because we didn't get to see a lot of adaptability on Bruce's resume out there.
Also, well, I don't think that's hard to say. I think that is the answer.
That means he didn't do well with it.
I want to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Sure.
But yeah, I think, I mean, we've already been hitting on the fact that there might not have been a lot of, reading the room, situational awareness, maybe present with his game. And maybe we could say the same about, and I would probably say the same about him being adaptable or flexible, rather, in that it did very much seem that, if, I don't know, I will say, I feel like, okay, so like, I think of like the moment where he finds out that Kelly wasn't with him the whole time. Like he did, he took that and then he did expand upon it and then like move on. But then I think back to this episode where Emily comes up to him and says like, Julie's just wanting your jury vote. She's not really, on your side and all that stuff. And it would startle him, but he did seem to reconsider his position in the game and stuff like that. But no, I can't really point to a moment where I'm like, oh, that was a great example of Bruce being flexible.
Yeah, I mean, we did discuss, and I almost could have had us lump together this with Rule 1, because we did have a lot of overlap there. Caleb told Gordon Holmes that Bruce was so inflexible in the game. Kelly told Dalton Ross that while he has such a good heart, he was just his way or the highway, and had a vision of how he wanted to play the game in that old school way we discussed earlier. Now, another way he wasn't exactly flexible was that while he told Kelly he'd play his idol on her if they knew she needed it, he refused to do it for anyone else, including Jake. Now, I say he wasn't exactly flexible, but pause your judgment of that for a moment, everybody who's listening. Because Kelly told Dalton Ross, I was like, well, you know how hard it is to convince Bruce to do something he doesn't want to do, which, okay, yeah, that's the inflexible part. But then Emily was frustrated by the same topic at the beginning of this week's episode, with Bruce only wanting to use his idol to save himself rather than strategically. But here's the thing. I have to defend Bruce here. I can understand this hesitation. If I had an idol and I knew I was the target for tribal council after tribal council, I wouldn't be eager to use it on someone else either.
Right.
Especially in the fractured state that the Bellows were in. It's not, because some people were, there's been a lot of discussion on social media, and some people are like, well, he could have, used it on someone, faked him out, used it, and then, knocked out Julie, or whatever could have happened. And then it would have been 4-3 and the Reba would have been in the minority. Okay, first, we'll discuss in Appendix A why they never could have gotten those 4 together to begin with. Second, though, even if they did, do we really think Jake, Katora, and Bruce are going to stay together long enough and not turn on Bruce the minute he doesn't have an idol anymore? I don't think Bruce could see it that way from his standpoint. So, so I'm okay with this particular inflexibility.
Right. Yeah, and I will say that goes back to something I've already mentioned. Bruce was well aware that his options were incredibly limited going back to camp. He knew that if it wasn't this tribal council, it was the next tribal council, because where is he going to bring people in onto his side? He was starting to realize he did not have a path to the end besides winning every immunity challenge to get there. And that was really
there.
Yes, exactly. And so that has to wear on you a lot too. So when he said he didn't want to use the idol for someone else, and Emily was kind of appalled by this, that the way that he wanted to use it instead of a more strategic way, I thought, no, use it to save your own butt. That's fine. Like that, because it is your game and you have to try to figure out where you want to go from here. And if you can't get there with the people that you're playing the game with, well, then you have to use your idol to save yourself. So I agree with that sentiment.
Or if you can get someone named David to use it on you, that's
well. I mean, that's true too.
I was. I mean, it just seemed, you're right. Like everything was stacked against him. Katora didn't want to work with him. Jake was hesitant. Now he kind of caused that, but
yes. Well, he caused a lot of it. Like we already discussed, and again, I almost should have started with Appendix A, I feel like. Because I keep saying, we'll get you an Appendix A.
Well, then people will just keep listening.
With him.
Oh, good point.
Right. Emily seemed interested in working with him, but then it's just so interesting to me that Emily and Reba, you know, I don't know what sort of connections they have or where she thinks she stands. I'm very interested in that. But yeah, I feel like his hands were tied a little bit, and almost I'm like, I mean, yeah, Katora. If Katora had not told the three other women at that reward that Bruce's
right.
idol was actually still in the game, they could have, as a group, used that and then taken out a Reba because it was right.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get to that in Appendix A.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
don't jump ahead, Carson.
Well,
I'm very bad at that. Like,
oh, me too. I've been told. We'll get there, Jessica. Don't jump ahead.
All right. Well, we'll move to the fourth rule, otherwise known as Carolyn's favorite, which tells players not to let their emotions control them. I mean, it should be her favorite now. She's literally in it now.
Right.
So we saw and heard from various other players who said Bruce was playing very emotionally. Caleb and Kelly both said that multiple times.
Yeah.
And those seem to be the negative types of emotions. Like Kelly described vendettas and animosity. And of course, on the flip side, we heard about him treating Kelly like his daughter, which is also emotional, though on the positive side. I want to mention that he clarified in his interviews that when he said things like that, he was more talking in a caring way than in a directing her life way. Okay, but we've already, because we, moved around a little bit, we already talked about the directing people's lives way. And, it's still a game. It is great to come out and have amazing friends like you do, Carson, with Carolyn and Jam Jam. But in the game, you have to play with other people and remember, like you were saying, they're your equals in the game. We discussed this last week. You just mentioned it earlier. The age gap didn't come up for you three. You were all equals. Like I never saw, and you would tell me if I'm sure. Well, I doubt Jam Jam ever said to you, I run a business. I'm not going to listen to some kid who's still in college.
No, never.
And I'm not saying Bruce did either outwardly.
Right.
But, I mean, I think that, and again, this is another example of the game versus not the game. Because at my work, did I have, when I was working, did I have situations where some employee would start, and I'd been there 25 years and they'd come in and tell me how to do something. And I'd be like, no, that's not the way this works. You're new. I know what I'm doing. But if I were in Survivor, we're all on a level playing field then. And that's the part that he seemed to have some issues with, even if he was thinking that he didn't treat Kelly as a daughter in the way we discussed. I think it's pretty clear that she felt he was trying to direct her, hindering her game. So, no matter what you might think, everyone there is an equal.
Yeah. And he even said in a lot of his exit interviews as well that he did not include emotion in his game. Like he was he was pushing that aside very heavily, that he did not include emotion. But I think he also did acknowledge that he didn't think about other people's emotions and that if he plays this game again, that's something that he needs to focus on more. So there is some reflection that seems to be happening here regarding how he played the game versus what we saw and what his interpretation of how he was playing it is. So, if we see him again, maybe we'll see a different Bruce. And he was dad to fun uncle. What would he be next?
Granddad.
That's
what that's where I'm. Maybe in like 10 years he's gonna join back and he's 56 and then it's granddad. I liked what you were talking about there's an emotional side that applies to you, but there's also the reading the emotions of other people. That it's so difficult to do because a lot of the skills that we talk about, even in the rules, like, yes, you can work on them, but a lot of them either come naturally and they don't. And some people just are born with it and some people aren't. And I mean, that's part, I mean, I think Survivor in casting, they've tried to focus on who is this person self-aware? Do they understand themselves? Like, I think of Danny, for example. He's very, for my season, he was very aware and self-thoughtful about the way that other people perceived him. He knew he was seen as the jock bro, like the cool guy. Like, and he would use that as a way to disarm people. And try to connect with them more deeply. We didn't really get to see that, but I'm just saying, I mean that's what I always say too, whenever I talk about Survivor, like, we're watching the story that makes sense for the end, right? Like, that, unfortunately, that means it's not like Big Brother live feeds where we get to dissect every little moment and actually see what happens. We get to see what we need to know in order to understand what will eventually happen. So if Bruce was emotionally aware in one moment, because it didn't affect the way that he exited, it probably wasn't shown if it happened at all. So, but at the same time, I mean, I reading the emotions of other people, how they're responding, the way you're communicating with them, how they react, I mean, is super important out there, and also something that's extremely difficult to work on. Like, I think of, I remember before I left, about while I was preparing, I was looking at Reddit threads of what would you do to prepare? Right. I know it actually, but here's the thing. I saw on there PG Law and Cass Cass from Kagayan had commented some stuff. And I remember Cass had talked about this incredible book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yes. Everybody knows it. I didn't know about it at the time. I bought it.
Kids these days. That generation.
I know, right? I'm not kidding. When I have kids, they will be required to read that before I pay for college. Required.
I love this.
I have never read the book, and I didn't require my kids to read it. So.
Oh my gosh, you've not read it?
Nope.
Okay. I go get the audiobook. It's only 5 hours. Listen to it at 2 times speed. That's why I would listen to y'all's. It is one of the most transformative books I've read.
Up your game. 3 times.
Oh, okay. We have a challenge. YouTube was limited to 2 times, but
yes, that's true. That's true.
Interesting.
But it was just the big things that it talked about were like how to be a good listener and what that meant, and a lot of times that meant just to be genuinely interested in other people, and it paid off in dividends. For me, at least. I mean, I took a personality test before I went out and played, and it listed 36 skills, and they were separated into 4 different categories. One was like astuteness, one was ability to, or emotional awareness, whatever. But you know what my lowest one was? Social interactions, relationships, talking. I'm not kidding. And it was something that I took to heart because I was like, I can't go on this show built on the social game and that be the worst thing I'm at. I'm the thing I'm worst at. And so I really did work on myself in that time, but it was not easy. But like, I also think like, I do think it is something that you naturally have, or you naturally don't. If you don't naturally have it, it's extremely difficult to learn. So
having gone to school with and worked with and been the boss of many engineers over the years. Some cliches, do have a basis in.
No, it's true. I was like, well, this is the most accurate most stereotypical engineer test I've ever read, personality test I've ever taken. So
there was jokes like, you would, a couple of engineers, male engineers walking down the hallway. If a woman would walk by, they'd like press themselves against the, against the walls, So.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that. I mean, like your shirt, Johnson Space Center, a lot of the buildings were built in like the 60s and 70s. So, I mean, it's crazy because there's like one bathroom for like men, and then you can tell they had to make a new one for women.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
because I'm not kidding, because it was not normal like for that to be a case. But it's really cool now where the cohorts for interns, specifically the Pathways program, which is like the co-op where you rotate many different times, many different places throughout the center. Right. It's 50-50, which is really cool to see. So it will take a while to.
When I went to college, engineering was definitely not 50-50. I can tell you that. I could, in my particular branch, which was ceramic engineering, so we made the tiles for the space shuttle.
No way! I didn't know this.
I didn't personally, but that was ceramic engineering. Yeah.
Well, the tiles are fascinating. Like everyone has, oh my gosh, that's super cool. And you can go see them at like some, I think at Kennedy Space Center, you can see like the underside of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we had some sample ones just in the building that people anyway, we had, I'm trying to think, we had less than 50 people in our class, and I don't know, I'm thinking through the individual women in my head, which tells you if I can think through of them, there were definitely less than 10. And
oh my gosh.
So, probably fewer than that, but yes, that was the thing. But boy, have we gone astray.
We definitely have gone astray. Sorry, Bruce. We're coming back, Bruce.
Sorry, Bruce.
So let's go to the 6th rule, which warns against being too much of a threat. Last week, Bruce talked about how he put a bigger target on himself by winning those 2 immunities. But really, he was already the biggest target. So the question is, how did that happen? Jessica, if there were so many people who wanted him out, how else was he a threat?
Well, I think the interesting thing with Bruce is he had an idol, and that was a concern for a lot of people, and that was something that can be perceived as a threat, because if the numbers shift and he plays the idol and you're, like Jake said, I don't like being the backup plan all the time. And if
the backup
target, that's right.
Yes.
And if Bruce had played his idol, my winner pick would have gone home. Sad. So I think in that regard he was, but I think also, even though he's someone who everyone wanted to go home, he was so difficult to kind of lock down and figure out where he was coming from and what he wanted to do. And I think this week was a really good example of that, when all of a sudden they were like, we need to come together. And we saw Bruce trying these different strategies with different people that he had never actually played the game with before. And so you're kind of left scratching your head like, well, what's his play here? What's going to actually happen? And Emily was talking about how he doesn't want to use the idol strategically. So no one could really like align with what his process was to play the game, which can be a threat to people who are trying to play the game with him as a potential ally, because you don't really know where he's coming from and you're not sure what Bruce is going to be doing, because also Bruce likes to share information. And so, so there's all of these levels to Bruce that make him a potential threat to your game, because he might tell someone something you don't want them to know. Like we saw with Kelly, he was sharing information and Kelly was like, oh, why are you doing this? So I think it's just kind of a whole thing with Bruce where components of how he presented himself caused him to then be a threat for people because of how he ended up playing the game the way that he did.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, even, with everything else put aside, and I do have a few other things, he, like you said, it's a threat to certain people. He was a threat to the Reba 4 in particular. One, because he wasn't one of the Reba 4. And yes, I do think his challenge abilities contributed, but he was in that position before he showed those off fully. But like you said, he had an idol, so they couldn't. I mean, their true goal, if you had asked them, well, actually, we saw it in confessionals. What is your goal, this tribal council? To flush his idol. Even Emily was like, it would take a miracle to actually get him out. The goal was to flush the idol, not to get rid of him, because the idol was a big part of the threat, like you said. And I think that it's interesting, because after he was voted out, some people said, why did they spend so much effort to get rid of him when no one would have voted for him to win at the end? And here's the thing. I'm not sure that's true. Okay.
Really?
I'm going to say that because, yes, he had some people upset with him. But can you imagine if he had powered his way to the end?
Oh, yeah.
You know, if he had gotten to the end sometime, if he had Hollowayed himself,
people love an underdog story,
yes,
for sure.
But I don't know. Given how I mean, like, I've never seen an exit like his, where
that's true. That's
where
true.
Yeah.
you see
everybody's like,
yes, you see Caleb, Kendra, and Kelly on the jury. You know, they like it's a little weird to me because it's like, if you don't like somebody, why do you want them to be at Ponderosa? Like, I guess they rooted for him. They rooted against him so much that they were willing to spend time with him at Ponderosa to not see him in the game.
That's
like,
a fair
it was
point.
not, I mean, and then even like, I mean, I there were moments right when he got voted out, Drew was like, yes. Yeah. And then you see, who else was beside him? Katora was like, whoa! Like, I mean, it was like a celebration.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like, you know, it started maybe as Katora didn't like him. Yeah. And then, you know, it's kind of like when you have a similar sentiment about somebody, but you don't really want to share it because what if they don't agree with you? And then all of a sudden you finally share that sentiment with that person, with somebody else. But when you find out they have the same sentiment, you don't like him either. Oh my gosh, I can't stand him. And it's like you bond over hatred. Hatred bonds people. And I feel like this mob hatred had built up upon him where it didn't matter what he did. If he steamrolled, people did not like him. People were not going to vote for him. So I'd have to disagree. I don't see him. I personally, I would have wanted him beside me at the end with this group if I were there. But I mean, who knows? I could be wrong too. So
we'll never know. You know,
we'll never know.
Like we've talked about. You know, we wish we could do a choose your own adventure book. Like, what would happen?
Oh yes,
you know,
would love to see that.
Computer online
that would be
RPG.
really cool.
You know, where you could see, what would have happened? Would people have voted for him?
And I do think it would have been interesting.
I do. I mean, I also think the shorter game does work against him because people have less time to get over it. Like these tribal counselors were like one a day or like every or 2 days, you know? And so, I mean, Kelly was back there the next night, you know, after she had been blindsided, getting to hear Jeff talk about how she had been blindsided. And then, you know, like 2 nights later, there's Bruce. And then, you know, so I'm not sure.
I'd be interested how, I mean, it's just been interesting watching the comparison of my season versus their season's jury where like people were like, you know, no one wants to get voted out, but like, I'm scared of their jury. They're terrifying. Like I mean, like you could, when they put the camera on Kendra after Julie was like, I feel so bad about voting.
Oh, the look.
The look Kendra gave her. I mean, I was like, oh my god.
There will be no Carsons on that jury where they're just sending their love and their help and their positive affirmations when people are answering questions. That's not going to be happening on this jury. Not at all.
I mean, they're scary. I'm terrified of them. So
all right. Well, we can move on to the 7th rule, which covers idols and advantages in game mechanics. And there's I think there's one issue we have to discuss here in particular. I don't know. Maybe it's the idol he didn't play. Yeah. Now, in interviews, Bruce gave full credit to Emily to convince him that he didn't need to play it. So at least what we saw on TV was correct there. He noted that while we hadn't seen it, he would talk to her a couple times each day. They would exchange information. So he believed he could trust her. What he didn't realize was there was no way she could get Jake and Katura on board with the plan.
Yeah.
Which, again, we'll discuss further in Appendix A. So she went for plan B, which was him.
Yeah. Well, and this is why I feel like I wasn't surprised that he didn't play the idol, because I feel like this is a very Bruce thing to do, where it's like he's convinced himself that this is the world he exists in, and that this is what is going to happen. And he finally had people surrounding him going, yes, this is what's going to happen. And so there's that moment that he needs in this game where someone's giving him a lifeline, and everything that Emily has told him up to that point checks out, and she hasn't lied to him. And so in his worldview, he's thinking, I've made it. Like, this is that moment. I'm going to make it to the next step. And I believe he told Rob that the problem that he found himself doing was he was looking ahead. He was like, oh, I can make it this much further. If I don't play the idol now, I'll have it for the next vote, and then that will save me. Instead of realizing I am in quicksand right now, and this is happening. Right. And he got lost in this idea of a world that didn't truly exist. But it was a very Bruce thing, I feel like, to do, to like sit there and be like, I'm not playing it because this is I will be fine. I am Bruce. And I just feel like that was a very poignant thing for him to do in that moment, to then have it turn out the way that it did.
Yeah.
Right. It was almost like they're trying to trick me into playing it when I don't need to play it, but so I'm not going to play it. Yeah.
Right. Like, shame on you.
That's exactly right. Because so many other players talked about how he was for sure going to play it. And I felt as I was watching that probably made him even more confident. Like, oh,
yes,
they're encouraging me
on
to
it.
Play it. So
they're working too hard on this.
Yeah, that I don't really need to play it.
Yeah. I mean, that can mess with you out there. I mean, it's kind of why I personally liked having a temporary idol, because it was like, well, if I'm going, I only have 2 chances to use it. If I go once, I'm going to use it that first time, guaranteed on myself. Right. And for someone like him, that lure of, well, if I hold on to it, then I have a guaranteed spot in the final 6. And then if I hold on to it one more time, then I have a, like that continuous.
Yes.
Like, what if, I keep, if one more time, until that one time causes your demise, which is what happened, but it was the first time. And it is scary, like having an idol in your pocket. It's like having this continuous weight. That's just like, it's a hole in your pocket almost, because you are so worried about, well, what if I don't play it? Because then it will secure me a spot the next time. And but if you're having an icky feeling, a bad feeling, like it's just worth it to play it. But one note about that, like just in general, that vote with the idol, I just find it so interesting because everyone's like, well, I don't want to I don't want to mess up my spot in the game. I don't want to, I don't want to turn on them. But if Bruce, Katora, and Jake and Emily had all voted on Julie, had voted on somebody else, they could have voted out someone from the Reba 4. They didn't even, it wouldn't have tied, because 3 of the Reba 4 voted for Jake, and then Julie voted for Bruce. So I'm like, I mean, it speaks to the
it's frustrating
the tension between them.
We'll get there.
You're doing the math.
We'll get there. We're almost there.
Yeah,
we're almost there.
Don't jump ahead, Carson.
Yeah,
am I jumping ahead again? I'm like, did we cover it? I'm like, now I'm
almost
going
there. We're almost there.
Bloomberg will keep us in line.
Yeah. But
okay.
I do want to say, we do have to say this. It's trivial to note this was obviously a mistake, but it was obviously a mistake.
Right.
And Jessica and I have discussed this before. I've discussed this on other podcasts. If you said it, Carson, if you have an icky feeling, use it.
Yeah.
Because always err on the side of staying in the game.
Yes.
And if you use the idol and you didn't need it, oh well, you can kick yourself. But you'll be kicking yourself from the shelter still on Fiji.
Yeah.
If you don't play it and you did need it, you're kicking yourself from Ponderosa, and then on the flight home, and then at home, and then the entire game until you do your interviews, and then
Also, the public aspect of his idol was a huge detriment, because when people know you have an idol, they're going to target you regardless of whether they're with you or against you, because you have something they don't. And it's a guarantee that you have a better position in this game, because you can guarantee yourself going forward. And Reba it's interesting with Reba because they're like, oh, well, I will use this for you. I mean, Julie, I think is holding Austin's idol still. I didn't even know that. I thought she gave it back to him for a while. Anyways, so it's just, I mean, yeah, like it was the same with Lauren's extra vote on our season. We all knew she had an extra vote. So we like, it was just, it ended up not even being useful. So
you can plan around
it, which is one of your rules too, which I'm skipping ahead probably again, but
no, you're in the right place for that, I think. Now, you know, the other thing was, when we mentioned this a little bit earlier, why did you tell Katurah, of all people,
my
about
gosh,
his lying plan?
Yes.
And he was, of course, asked that in interviews, and he said he felt like they were finally getting their footing together, and she would go with the plan.
It's not how you test the footing.
Yeah, I mean, because he also said in his responses to other questions, she was good at hiding what she really thought of him. Now, he didn't know that until it was over. But, yeah, it's like, I mean, you know, it's like they're literally walking together and she's like, oh, yeah, it's great that we're finally on the same page. And she just can't wait to hold up his name still, you know? And it's like, oh, Bruce, why'd you tell her? All right.
That was not a great plan. No. Not a great plan.
Mm-hmm.
So we are finally there. We are at Appendix A.
Yeah. I've waited so long.
Yes. Yes, we have. It is about the players keeping their end goals in mind when voting. And we talk about voting out the weak, then the strong, then the weak, then the strong. Now, at this point in the game, it's still about getting out strong threats, particularly revolving around the Reba 4. And what I mean by that is the Rebas should be taking out any threat to them. Everyone else should theoretically be taking out the Reba 4.
Right.
But several problems, and we've already hit on some of these, but just to bring them all together. The primary problem is the Reba 4 have just been so good at hiding how close they are to each other. It's obvious to us, which has caused a big problem on social media. I cannot tell you how many messages I have seen on Facebook groups and, you know, even on Twitter responses like, but it's obvious they're together. No, it's obvious to us because we're seeing the edit.
Always.
If you listen to and read the exit interviews that have been coming out, every person has been either hinting at or specifically saying, like Kendra last week, specifically talked about how it wasn't obvious. You know, we couldn't talk about that last week because we did it before her interview, but that was I mean, it wasn't essential to the why Kendra lost, but it's good information to have like now. You know, even after Emily explained it to Bruce and Katurah, they still turned on Bruce with Jake as the backup. And the reason is each one believes they have allies among the Bellow, and those that's blurring their overall game vision. You know, we saw Bruce until Emily told him he thought he was good with Julie. Jake thought he was good with Drew until they got into that argument. Katurah we've gotten less of this, but I think she thinks that she's good with Julie and possibly Dee. Emily, of course, thinks she's good with Drew and Austin. And because they're so splintered and so deceived, they can't work together, even more than the social reasons. And so, you know, for anyone who says, you know, why couldn't Emily make this move? Why didn't she make this move? She talked to them about it. She would have truly needed magical powers to make these three work together. You know,
truly.
And so, you know, when she didn't have that and it was obvious, she had to do something else, and that was getting rid of Bruce.
Yeah.
It's so interesting what you were talking about with how what is maybe obvious to the viewers may not be obvious to the players out there. And you're right, because right now the story is the Reba 4, right? And how they've been, you know, getting through this game. And because that's what's usually impacting the votes of what's going on, that's the storyline we're being presented as an audience. However, out there, I'm sure for them, it was, oh, well, I actually trust Julie. Well, I trust Drew. You know, just fractions of it. And and I want to call them Coco because Coco will always be blue to me. But what are they called? Bello was so fractured walking into the merge that it's like they couldn't imagine, they couldn't even fathom the idea of working together.
Right.
Well, and they also, I think, couldn't fathom Reba being together. Kelly said this in, Kelly said the meta of the new era is cross-tribal alliances. It is not
absolutely
a tribe going together. And plus, this was the first season that had a true swap. And so these people weren't even together for the whole time leading up to the merge. But it really reminds me the most, Carson, of Jamie and Lauren. Because because you and Jam were, as I recall it, leading along Jamie and Lauren. And they were doing things that we were like, what are they doing? Why are they being so dumb? Why are they not voting this way? And then it slowly came out. Oh, and I think we'd have seen more of it if we had 90-minute episodes.
I know. I was about to say that. Like, it wouldn't. They weren't stupid. It was we were just good.
Yeah, and occasionally, occasionally, Lauren or Jamie would break and post something on Twitter like, "No, we're not dumb," But
I mean, seriously, they were. I mean, Jam was so close with Jamie, and I was extremely close with Lauren. Like, Lauren and I still hate. I mean, whenever I'm at Johnson Space Center, I'm practically living at Lauren's house and playing.
Well, given your last apartment, you should have been, but yes.
I moved in for a week actually, and they're on the couch, and I babysit for her kids. Anyways, but no, like her and I, they never showed our friendship very much out there. Like until they showed her targeting me at the end, but like we were close friends. So you're right, and the 90 minutes would have helped on that. But yeah, it's a similar situation where Lauren and Jamie thought that, like, okay, their path to the end was with Jam and me. Jam and Carson just blindsided Carolyn by not telling her about the Franny vote. And so obviously we can trust them. I'm obviously very close with Carson. Jamie's like, I'm obviously very close with Jam. So yeah, you're right. It's those cross-tribal connections and hiding your true like your core almost or being fractured at the core or hinting at it that can really give you a steep advantage in the at the merge. So and Reba has done it well with it.
And they didn't, the other players, nobody from the season got to see the end of your season. So they did not see how you stuck together to
how you were good at it.
So therefore, they weren't guarding as much against it when it came to Reba.
Right. Yes.
Now, the other thing I want to point out, and this was something you guys had, one of you or you and Carolyn, someone had mentioned earlier, was the emotion of it. The emotion that was involved. I want to say, though, that it's not just the emotion, because we've already talked about this. They turned on each other in strategic ways. So even if you take emotion completely out of it, you still look at it and say, if you're Jake, this man just lied to me. Not 5 minutes ago, he lied to me, and now he expects me to work with him.
Right.
Yeah.
How can I trust him on this? And same with Katurah. Bruce called me out in front of a bunch of other people. How can I trust him going forward? So even yes, there's definitely emotion in there, but even taking the emotion out of it, you can't trust people who have done things to you previously. You shouldn't. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they just kept shooting themselves in the foot instead of aiming at their actual I almost said enemy, because other than Emily, they don't even realize who the enemy is.
Yeah.
Right. They're practically just letting Reba just slide along because they can't get it together.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's partly caused by Bruce. Yeah, those moments where he's like lying to Jake, like the one person that you should be able to trust. Y'all have been like kind of together this whole time. So yeah. They're a disaster. It really is like the disaster against the core. That's what it's. You have the Reba. They know what they're doing. They're just they're just floating, and then you're just letting the other ones kill each other until
it's Reba's got kind of easy sailing because they're like, oh, we'll just let the rest of them knock each other out and mess it all up, and we'll just keep moving forward the way that we are.
Yeah,
and it's working for them. Well,
yes. All right. Well, Appendix B is about the jury phase, and I thought a couple things were interesting in this episode, both of them pertaining to Emily. One, she talked about how her move here with Bruce would be something she, could call her own, and Bruce, credited her specifically in interviews. So I'm thinking if she does find a way to make it to Final 3, she has done something she can definitely point to in terms of I got rid of the target that everyone wanted out.
Right. Yeah. I think that was her goal in a lot of this, where she's thinking end game long term as opposed to, and maybe, and Carson, this is to your point, maybe she is truly convinced that she's in that Final 3 as she thinks she is with Austin and Drew. And so not only does she have a Final 3 plan and a path in her mind, now she has something that she can talk to a group of individuals who clearly wanted Bruce gone and say, hi, look at me. I'm the one that helped pull that off because I convinced him not to play his idol. So I think that there's like a combination of things happening there for her where she wants that resume piece. And then she also wants to be able to, or she believes that she has a path to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, she also talked in this episode about how everyone lies to Jake. So she wanted to tell him the truth, even if it wasn't necessarily a truth he wanted to hear, so that if he's on the jury, he'll remember that and basically think kindly of her. Yeah. So she's out there thinking ahead, and she's also thinking about social things. This is the same Emily from episode 1.
I know.
So, yeah.
Carolyn wants that Emily back.
No. That one. Sorry,
she
Carolyn.
does. She's always like calling me like, when are we getting the fun Emily? I'm tired of the strategic one.
I think the strategic one is fun. I
do too. I want them to have more rewards with wine so she can sit there with her cup, her leg up, and just like and kind of like in a Mike White reference, just play. I've really enjoyed her. I feel like she has been she's one of the, how they're in stories, there's characters that don't change and there's characters that do and have arcs. Like she has that insane character arc. And you're like, wow. Yeah. And it's honestly it's so crazy because I mean, it's almost too big of an arc. Like if you were given this, if you gave this story to a writer, they would say, oh, that doesn't happen. Like that's not normal for someone to transform that much. But the fact that it has in real life is even crazier. So I'm fascinated in the way that she has evolved in front of her eyes. It's really cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, it is about time to wrap things up. So, Carson, what are your final thoughts for this podcast? Not final thoughts for Bruce, because you know him outside of here. But what are your final thoughts on Bruce for this?
My final thoughts on Bruce. I should have written them down like y'all do and like have it so like eloquent, but I'm just gonna be off the cuff. But I absolutely adore Bruce. Bruce called me before he went and filmed. I didn't know he was going to film, and he was asking me about puzzle stuff. And my biggest regret is not having given Bruce more puzzles, so it could have been an advantage, so people would like it. I'm just kidding. But no, I feel like Bruce has taken a lot of the things that he learned from watching our season, from hearing from Jam and Carolyn and myself about the way we went through the game. And I feel like he's gotten in his head a lot about what is his path forward. And in his head, he has had these amazing relationships. He had his number 1 with Kelly. He's had this Bella group that has continued through, but really in reality, it's all been a lie. He hasn't, and unfortunately later in this game, as he's seen Kelly and Kendra exit, he's come to the realization that everything that he had been playing had been betting on and counting on was not a reality. And it almost just caused his immediate demise, because unfortunately for him, his game was built upon false relationships that he thought were real. And I think that like he had been planning for those relationships to take him far, but in reality, they were planning to take him out way before. And unfortunately, I think that's what ultimately caused him to exit this game, was that at this point in the game, when the final 8, he had no paths to the end. It was, can I win immunity challenges? And can I use my idol to get me forward? And unfortunately, he didn't play his idol tonight, so that caused him to leave even sooner. So that's why Bruce lost.
That was lovely.
Yes.
Sorry, that was crazy.
No, that was lovely. I do think that Bruce's plan to come in and be the fun uncle turned into Bruce being the uncle that we all try to avoid at those parties, where you're like, oh no, he's going to tell me that story again, or oh no, he's going to tell me how to do this. And I'm not trying to speak ill of Bruce, unfortunately,
or your uncles.
Or that's fair. But I do feel like that Bruce kind of locked himself into that a little bit, right? Because he came into Survivor with a plan of being that fun uncle. And when it wouldn't work out the way that he wanted, he didn't make the necessary adjustments for it. And that's as we've talked a lot about, the hard part of playing the game of Survivor is you have to come in and adjust to your surroundings. And if it's not working, you need to do something different. And unfortunately for Bruce, it wasn't working, and it continued to not work. And he continued to still act the same way. And it continued to start to frustrate more and more people. And Carson, you talked about it a bit, where you have that realization like, oh, that's troubling you too. Oh, that's annoying you too. Oh, you don't like that either. And then that bonds people. So Bruce actually almost created his own demise by giving people a reason to bond. And they were bonding over their dislike of the mannerisms of Bruce. And so it gave them something to connect with, as opposed to wanting to come together and play the game. They were like, oh, we can come together and speak ill of Bruce. And that's unfortunate. And I think that him having to watch that back has probably been very difficult and hard, because in his mind, he had constructed this world where I'm going to be the fun uncle and everyone is going to love me and want to play this game with me. And it's going to work out fantastically well for me. And it really just fell so flat because people didn't appreciate the fun uncle the way that he thought they would. Bruce just fell into that, and it stuck with him. And it was like, you just can't get rid of it. And if you're not willing to adjust and change and shift with this game, then you are not going to be able to win this game. And unfortunately for Bruce, he found himself being locked into a group that didn't want to work with him, and then a bigger group that didn't want to work with him. And then he became the person that everyone wanted out of the game. And unfortunately for Bruce, he just wasn't willing to change those components of himself that became necessary for him to actually make it to the end and have a chance to win. So I think Bruce is a great guy. I really do. And I love the personality, and I love what he brings to a space. But sometimes when it's Survivor, it's got to be something different than what you would normally bring about in your regular self in your world. So those are my thoughts on Bruce.
Yeah. In my intro to the rules portion of this podcast, like an hour and a half ago, I mentioned how Bruce had wondered how much of him getting voted out was because he was a threat and how much was them just wanting him the hell out of there. As we've gone through the rules, through our, ups and downs and roundabouts, I think it's clear that it was a mix. Yes, Bruce was certainly a threat in that he had an idol and he had showed how well he could do in challenges. But mostly, he was the kind of threat specifically to the Bello to the Reba, who couldn't risk him getting further in a way that could possibly mess up their foursome. However, he first became a target due to other reasons, many of which focused on the Bello tribe mates just wanting him gone. We discussed at length why that was, but suffice it to say, his own view of how he acted Carson, as you said, definitely didn't mesh with the views of others who were there with him. In Survivor, once a target is placed on someone, it is very difficult to get rid of it. So when they wanted him out early, in theory, that should have changed later because the reasons weren't the same anymore. But even if they were playing as perfect game bots, maybe they would have put their emotions aside and joined with Bruce to flip the game. But maybe not, because, I mentioned how there's still strategic aspects. Plus, as Bruce himself noted, there are human emotions involved in the game. And so it's just a situation where no matter what, they weren't going to work with him. If Kelly had still been there, she might have been able to pull them back together because she just had that ability. But that further emphasizes how correct the Reba were to blindside her earlier and disperse the bellow in a way that could never be fixed. Without her, they were ripe to be picked off one by one. Bruce was the primary target, in part because he'd always been the primary target, but also because he was indeed more of a threat to the Reba's plan. As soon as he became available, they had to at least flush out his idol to reduce his power. Emily put the cherry on top by convincing him he didn't need to play it. And that is why Bruce lost.
There we are. 2 hours and 9 minutes.
Yes.
I can't remember. Is that long for you? I feel like it is. I feel like
a little long. It's about a
little
long. Yeah.
Means I'm a little long.
We've had a couple of guests.
Yes.
We have. Yes.
So we still have predictions to go. Before we do that, I just want to remind everyone that the rules we just discussed, you can find on robhasawebsite.com/yxlostfeed. Scroll down, click on it. You can get it as a poster, as a t-shirt, and as a checklist t-shirt. And if you go through one of these t-shirt links, you can also get the NASA shirt, the NASA RHAP shirt that you had mentioned.
It's amazing. It's actually very comfortable. I highly recommend.
Yes. They all,
nice.
Yes, I love it.
So in the meantime, before, again, we get to predictions, Carson, where can people reach you?
Well, you can interact with me on Twitter. I try to keep up with the episodes. It's really the only thing I tweet about is Survivor. And it's crazy because I used to do that with like 0 followers, and now I have like people who are actually interested in what I say. So it's a weird dynamic where I'm, it's like people, I don't know. It's like a little bit odd that people care about what I think.
You are rather hilarious on Twitter,
Yes.
I will say.
Yes.
Oh, well, I'm surprised you don't say annoying, but that's super nice.
No, my gosh, I think you're hysterical.
Yes.
But yeah, or if you want to keep up with me more personally, Instagram is probably the way to go. I try to give updates about what's going on in my day or what's going on and where I am in my life. I'm still trying to finish school, still trying to keep up the space career. So yeah, that's me.
Okay. What's your account on?
Oh yeah, my account handle. Sorry. Twitter is Carson Garrett _ and Instagram is Carson.Garrett or whatever. I like period because it just sounds weird and it adds a little oddness to it.
Love it. All right, should I talk about where they can find me, Bloomberg?
Yes.
All right, so on Twitter, I'm much like Carson at this point in my life. I'm mostly just tweeting about Survivor. So, but I am at Jessica Lewis 89. I am also on Instagram. I'm at Jessica Lewis 6789. But I am nothing compared to David Bloomberg, because David Bloomberg has a link tree which outlines all of the incredible places that you can find him, and he is everywhere on social media. So David Bloomberg, take it away.
Yes, I am everywhere. Every time I think of that, there was a song. There was a parody type song when I was growing up. It would play on Dr. Demento and other places called "Elvis is Everywhere." And so every time you say that, that's what pops into my mind.
Well, there
Probably almost no one else would get it if I like broke into song.
And now we would.
Like, stop.
Yes, listen, there was that time that you rapped.
I know,
it was the most amazing moment ever.
Bring it back.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was not expecting it. And I will say That was before there was video, and I wish there had been video, because I would have loved to have watched that happening and you seeing my reaction to it, because I was dying.
Yes. All right. Well,
Linktree. Back to Linktree.
Linktree. I have no RHAP videos on my Linktree.
Damn it.
My Linktree is Linktree/David Bloomberg with a dot before the EE, because that's just the way Linktree does it. Or you can find me on most text-based social media like Twitter and Blue Sky as @David Bloomberg. And on the video platforms, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram is @David Bloomberg TV.
Wait. Sorry. What is Blue Sky? I've never heard of this.
Blue Sky is a Twitter-like alternative that is being created by the original creator of Twitter.
What? I did not know this.
Yeah, cool. It's not going great. Much like Threads. I'm @David Bloomberg TV because it's connected to Instagram. But it was another alternative that came out too soon before it had full functionality, and I think it's paying the price for that. Some people have moved there. Some, like, I've noticed the science community has more moved there, but not the reality TV community, almost at all. So on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, I'm still posting 3, these days sometimes 4 videos per day, as I try to keep up with all the different shows. And you may say, all the different shows, what shows? There's US Survivor, there's Survivor UK, there's The Traders Canada, there's Squid Game The Challenge, there's House of Villains, and I'm doing mini Why Blank Losts for Survivor UK also there. Now, on this podcast, we have the man who currently holds the record for the TikTok with the most views of any of mine.
For Survivor, I thought it was. I thought Bowie Jane beat me.
Bowie Jane beat you on Instagram.
Oh, on Instagram. So I still won on TikTok.
You still have it on TikTok with over 1.1 million.
I'm so excited about that.
When you were, and it's from the scene when Carson revealed after the game was over at the reunion, when he revealed his NASA connections, that took off. And prior, I think you also have the second highest from when you were talking about 3D printing your puzzle.
Oh gosh,
I feel so special.
Yes. Yes. Now Bowie Jane overtook you on Instagram.
I'm so effing Bowie Jane. I am so upset about her.
Yeah. She crushed you. It's 11 or 12 million on Instagram. So,
well, you know what? I'm happy for you though, because that's really cool engagement. That's crazy. Yeah. Oh my god, that really
is great. That's incredible.
I just wish it had translated to more.
Media guru.
I needed more people to follow me from those. But yes. So, but of course, no more Big Brother TikToks these days. But all those other shows. Although Traders Canada is coming to an end this week. This coming Monday with its finale. And I have been recapping the Traders Canada at the Tradar podcast, which is spelled TRAIDAR, which you can find either on your usual podcast host or as audio on YouTube. I'm also podcasting there in a special series about Survivor UK with a co-host who lives in the UK and has never seen Survivor before. So all these things are new to him, like the merge. What does it mean? How do people decide who they're going to vote for to win? What is this auction thing? And why is that crazy man yelling from the jury? Because the very first juror gave a speech from the jury after the vote right after him.
What?
Yes, exactly. This got me yelling, and it got a lot of people upset.
Oh, that's not okay.
No, that is not okay. And Survivor UK production.
What do you mean?
Bad.
I'm sorry, my dog is here. Yes. She clearly needs something.
So yes, that was a little crazy. But again, that's also on the Tradar podcast for me. Time for predictions now. Yes. Now, in the preview, we see discussion among the Reba of turning on one another. That's bullshit.
That's not happening.
No, it never happens.
Yeah. We just spent a lot of time talking about the Reba 4, how they've done a good job of hiding themselves, convincing the others about individual relationships. Even if the 3 non-Reba realize that now, there is nothing they can do about it.
No, there's nothing. They're
These
done.
4 are solid. they're going to keep up the pagonging, and Jake is going to be the next target unless he wins immunity.
No, he is not. He is winning. He is winning.
He is not winning. Sorry,
okay,
Jake.
What's interesting though is that Jake is also my winner pick.
Wow.
So I'm in the same space as you, Jessica.
Carson, I love this for us.
I'm not kidding. Yes, I know, right? Like, because you said that at the beginning, I was like, oh, I want to save this for the podcast because
love that. Thank you.
Jake is my winner pick too. And I still can see it. I can.
Me too. Me too.
Unfortunately, I'd love for him to be in a better position in this game.
Yes,
but
for the record, and for audio listeners, I am, since Jessica said we have to do this, like lawyers for the record, I am giving a very skeptical eyebrow raising look right now.
Carson, please explain.
Well, okay. So, all right. Jake, for me, is an underdog that you want to root for in the storyline. And I feel like, okay, so I think I really do not see, I'm interested to see the way the jury responds to the Reba 4. I mean, clearly they weren't aware of it. But like, okay, let's say it's a final 3 of Drew, Julie, and Jake. I could see people wanting to give respect to Drew and appreciate his game, but I think it will really depend on how the temperature of the jury. Are they going to be warm with him? Or are they going to be cold? Are they going to be upset or like happy? Because it was interesting the way they, I look at the way they show interactions. And so like we saw Drew and Jake's interaction this episode, and Jake was presented in more of the heroic light, kind of trying to go against this majority, and Drew was represented not as favorably in that he was calling him the mobster. It seemed a little bit like, well, why? I mean, Drew, technically you did target Jake. Rightfully, Jake can target you, and you're equal, whatever.
Right.
So I look at that, and I can just see in a similar light in the way I would have had an upwards battle, or someone like Xander certainly had an upwards battle. Will the jury take Drew seriously? It does seem like, though, he has cemented very good relationships. His game has been very impressive so far. So I'm interested, like that would be something of interest. But then Julie, I can also see, they're hinting at this Mama Julie not being taken seriously and being and people hate the idea of someone leaning into I'm the loyal person like Mike did in season 42 and then actually be like I'm actually not being loyal. It's like either own it or you're not getting your vote. So in that sense, I could see the original Bello members on the jury wanting their season to be represented by an underdog like Jake. And if he can get there, so
rallying
I can see a path where Jake wins. But I'm very interested. I think it will really depend on, these next couple episodes, see what goes on. And now that Jake is not with Bruce anymore, how will that affect it? I'm fascinated, but
how it will affect him is he won't be the backup target anymore. He'll be the primary target.
Here's the thing, and this is what I foresee for Jake. Jake is going to be that player that they will now dismiss this next because now Reba's like, we definitely have the numbers. It doesn't even matter. And Jake's easy. We don't need to worry about Jake. So let's focus our attentions elsewhere because that's what the focus is now going to be. Reba knows they've got the majority hands down. They have it, and they will continue to treat Jake as that easy vote. And Jake will be that person that manages to maneuver his way into the final 3. And all of a sudden people go, what the hell happened? How did that happen? Because everyone dismissed Jake and went, he's the easy vote. We can get him later. That's why he's been the backup target every time because they're like, well, we can always get to Jake later. And so I feel like they're why focus your energy on Jake when you don't need to, when you have Katora and Emily there, and you can focus your energy on one of those individuals. And between those two, I think Emily is more of a threat to Reba as far as a final 3 situation. But now when you start looking at the jury and the jury being stacked the way that it is with so many Bello, what becomes a concern? Having a Bello sitting in the final 3 or having someone who's a Lulu? You have one, old Lulu there. So I feel like that makes Katurah more of the focus for a next vote, because her relationships with everyone has been a little bit weird. Like I can't really, because it's been so Bruce heavy, right? And so I feel like Katurah is going to be the one that is a little more of the wild card, as opposed to Emily, where I feel like Drew and Austin are going to feel like they can manage Emily. They'll be able to keep Emily in check. We have to focus on Katurah. That's my guess.
I mean, I could see it going Katurah instead. I still think it'll be Jake, because
it won't be, right, Carson?
But
I hope not for my my prediction.
For your
what's
prediction.
That called? Like the you know how you do those like little charts with people like who you think is going to win. Anyways, he's on the top of mine. So I don't want to
I just don't. I
winner predictions. Yeah.
If I don't see a path for Jake to make it to the final 3. If he does, I see him as an Owen. And I think Owen sees him as an Owen too, considering Owen bestowed the Charlie Brown shirt on him.
He did. But Jake, I'm with you. I am with you.
Okay, I like Jake. Don't get me wrong. I like Owen.
I mean,
too.
If it helps, my first draft pick was Brandon. I thought Brandon was going to be final 3, if not win. So
that doesn't help.
If it
I know. I still say I'm just saying that as so if I'm wrong, people will know that I'm not necessarily usually right. My winner prediction.
Oh, listen, I'm always wrong. I'm always wrong. So
okay, this is bad for us.
It is bad for us, which is why I have to relish in this moment where Bloomberg's winner pick is gone. Mine is still in the game. He's been doing so well with his winner picks. I haven't picked a winner since before I did the podcast. The last winner pick I got correct was JT. How long ago was that?
Yeah.
Right. Wow. Yes. Thank you, Carson. That was my last.
It's not easy. You would think like, oh, Carson, like you did okay. You got final 4. You never got a vote counted against you. You probably could. My 41 winner pick was Sarah. My 42 winner pick was Tori. My 43 winner pick was Ellie. My 44 pick was myself. And nobody.
I'm glad you picked yourself. Okay, I'm glad you picked yourself. Always bet on yourself.
I might have been my own winner pick too. So yes, I mean, I can appreciate that.
Yeah. I don't remember who my winner pick was for your season. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I'd have to go back and look. But. All right. Well, as we wrap up, I want to encourage people to check out the RHAP.
Sorry, that's my dog. If you can hear that.
No. At robhasawebsite.com/patron. You can get access to a variety of special podcasts that are put out just for patrons. And of course, there's a great community. So again, go to robhasawebsite.com/patron. Also, make sure you're subscribed to all of the reality TV RHAP Up podcasts by going to robhasawebsite.com/RHAP Ups feed, selecting your podcast service of choice. And then you'll get everything that comes in there, whether it's the other Survivor podcasts like the B&B or Survivor International, but also podcasts on a number of other topics. So with that,
Carson, I would like to say thank you.
Yes.
Am I allowed to do that?
Yes.
I mean, you wanted to flip it over to Carson. Did you want to do that first?
I was going to thank Carson, but you can thank Carson first.
Oh my God, no! You thank Carson. No, you thank Carson.
I feel so special.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Carson, for coming on. It was great to finally get you on. We say finally like it's been forever.
No, seriously, I've been so much looking forward to it. Thank you.
So, and we have too. So,
yes,
we're definitely excited about it.
Okay, yes. This just popped in my mind, but Jessica, I have to tell you. So, okay, when my first season was your season, and my cousins were forcing me to watch it. I have 2 twin cousins. They're my best friends. They fight kind of like Carolyn and Jam Jam, and I think that's why I was able to be friends with Carolyn and Jam Jam so well, because I had grown up with my best friends being twins, and they fought the whole time. And Jam Jam and Carolyn are like long lost siblings where they like are the same, not the same, but they're very kooky character. You get it.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my cousin came in when you watched the episode where you were eliminated with a rock draw. I mean, he was so devastated. He was crying. I mean, I was sad too, but like, I mean, he was so devastated. It became a meme in our family for years. Like it was like, okay, someone just got voted out, Camden's sad, and I'm like, okay, but at least it wasn't Jess, or it wasn't as bad as Jessica's elimination. And I'm gonna text him after this that I've been on a podcast with you, because like literally
that's incredible.
I'm not kidding. You were his. I mean, I loved you too, but like he like literally had the most a depression week after you were eliminated.
Oh well, you can tell him I did too. I shared in that depression. So thank you for supporting me through that. That's really sweet. I love that not only I was in Fiji with you, but then I'm also like at your family get together. So this is great.
Yes, he like.
Well, tell him I said hi.
I will.
I definitely, and send my appreciation and love. I even though it was a very sad moment, it's nice that other people were suffering along with me. So thank you.
Absolutely. No, they were.
Yes, they were. And now I would also like to thank you, Carson, as well, for joining us and sharing that story and sharing all of the stories that you have. This has been lovely. And also sneaking Carolyn on here for a little bit. That was lovely. So thank you for that as well. This has been a true joy. It's always nice to get another player's perspective on the game, especially someone who has a relationship with Bruce, because you actually had an opportunity to spend some time with Bruce in the game itself. So thank you for joining us. I would also like to thank Scott St. Pierre, who does all of the editing for all of the content on the RHAP patron page, everything you name it, and all of the help and support that he receives for the editing as well. Thank you to everyone who makes it possible for not only Why Blank Lost, but all of the content that you find. There is so much out there. There are so many options. Rob has just put together an incredible, just amazing set of just shows and podcasts and just everything that you really want to hear. The content is there, it's available, and he's always coming up with new things. So you should definitely become a patron. And also thank you to everyone who works so hard to support the RHAP page and all of the podcasts and the content that exists. So thank you so much for that as well. And David, thank you. This was lovely. And 2 hours and 30 minutes.
I know. So yes, thank you very much again, Carson, and thank you, Jessica, for another great episode. I think I hope people do listen to the whole thing, watch the whole thing, make it to this point. We used to give out a hashtag at the end so that people who made it to this point, but hashtags kind of went away from podcasts at some point.
It's fine.
And so, but yeah, I hope everybody enjoys both the stories, Carson, from your season and from other seasons, and the way it all integrates into this one, because I really do think there's a lot of connection in there.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
So we will be back in 1 week, Jessica and I. Unfortunately, not Carson too. But he'll have like finals and stuff like that,
Yeah, that's
stuff to do. I mean, he just wants to like work for NASA. I mean, come on, whatever.
But we'll be back in a week, and of course, you can find me other places around. So we'll see you on social media, or we'll see you back here in a week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.